Hello everyone, I am the storyteller and I am here to help you today. I know you use this video to fall asleep, so before that, like the video and subscribe to the channel. Also, where are you from and what time are you watching? Now get comfortable and relax. I shouldn't have bought that clown doll. That's what I keep telling myself at 3 a.m. when I hear the music start. But let me back up and tell you exactly what happened, because I need someone to understand this isn't just in my head. It started 3 weeks ago. I needed a birthday gift for my niece Emma's 8th birthday. She collects dolls, and I wanted to get her something unique. Not another mass-produced Barbie from Target. I was walking down Madison Street when I saw this antique shop I'd never noticed before. The window display had this old Victorian dollhouse that caught my eye. The shop bell rang when I pushed open the door. Dust floated in the sunlight. The place smelled like old books and furniture polish. An old man sat behind the counter reading a newspaper. He didn't look up. I walked through narrow aisles of shelves packed with old stuff. Glass cases held jewelry. Chairs were stacked on tables. Then I saw it. Sitting on a shelf between some brass candlesticks and a porcelain vase. A vintage clown doll, about 12 inches tall. It wore a blue and white striped costume with red pom-poms down the front. The face was hand-painted porcelain, with rosy cheeks and a red nose. The smile wasn't creepy like most clown dolls. It looked genuinely happy. The hair was real auburn mohair styled into 2 little tufts on either side of its head. I picked it up. The body was soft cloth stuffed with sawdust. I could feel the graininess. The hands and feet were porcelain too, painted with white gloves and black shoes. No cracks or chips anywhere. The craftsmanship was incredible. "How much for the clown?" I called out. The old man finally looked up. $40. "Any history on it?" He shrugged. "European, probably German, late 1800s, good condition." I examined it closer. No wind-up key or speaker holes. Just a simple, well-made doll. Emma would love it. I handed over 2 20s and the man wrapped it in brown paper. That first night I put the clown on my dresser. I planned to wrap it for Emma's party that weekend. I fell asleep around 11. At 3:17 a.m. I woke up to music, a tinkling melody like a music box playing Pop Goes the Weasel. I thought I was dreaming at first. Then I opened my eyes and heard it clearly, coming from the dresser. I turned on the lamp. The music stopped instantly. The clown sat exactly where I'd left it, that same cheerful smile on its face. I got up and examined it again. No music box mechanism, no batteries, no speakers, nothing. I put it back and went to bed. Must have been dreaming, or maybe it was coming from a neighbor's apartment. The next night, same thing. 3:17 a.m. Pop Goes the Weasel. This time I jumped up faster and hit the lights. Silence. The clown hadn't moved. I picked it up and really inspected it. Turned it over, felt every inch of the cloth body. Nothing mechanical inside, just sawdust filling. The porcelain parts were solid. No hidden compartments. That's when I noticed something odd about the smile. In the daylight at the shop it had looked cheerful, but now in my bedroom at 3 a.m., the painted lips seemed to curl up slightly higher at the corners. The expression wasn't quite the same. I put it in the hall closet and shut the door. Went back to bed. At 3:17 the music started again. Muffled now, but still audible through the closet door. The next day I took it to a doll repair shop. The woman there had been fixing antique dolls for 30 years. She examined every inch of it. "Beautiful piece," she said. "German, late Victorian era. Hand-painted porcelain, mohair, original costume. No music box or mechanical parts of any kind. Worth a lot more than $40. You're sure there's no way it could play music?" She shook her head. "Impossible. It's just porcelain and cloth and sawdust." That night, I put it in the trunk of my car. At 3:17 a.m., I woke up to the music. Fainter, but still there, drifting up from the parking lot 3 stories below. I didn't sleep much the next few days. The music came every night at exactly 3:17 a.m. Sometimes loud, sometimes soft, depending where I put the clown. I tried the basement storage unit, the building roof, a friend's house across town. It didn't matter. The music found me. I started taking photos of the clown's face several times a day. After a week, I compared them side by side. The smile was definitely changing, getting wider. The eyes seemed to be shifting too, the painted pupils gradually moving to track my position in the room. Emma's birthday party was in 2 days. No way I could give this thing to my niece now. I had to get rid of it. I drove to the antique shop. Closed. A for lease sign in the window. The whole place emptied out like it had never existed. I tried destroying it. Hit the porcelain head with a hammer. Not a scratch. Tried burning it. The flames wouldn't touch it. Threw it in a dumpster. It was back on my dresser the next morning. That's when the music started coming at random times. Not just 3:17 anymore. I'd be in the shower and hear it through the wall. Driving to work and it would play through my car speakers. Sitting at my desk and it would come from my computer, my phone, random people's phones around me. The facial changes accelerated too. The smile now stretches literally from ear to ear. The eyes follow me constantly. Sometimes when I look quickly, I catch the head turned at an angle it wasn't at before. Last night, I woke up to the music at midnight. The clown was sitting on my chest, face inches from mine. The porcelain hands were pressed against my cheeks. The stuff inside didn't feel like sawdust anymore. It felt like muscle and bone shifting under the cloth. I threw it across the room. It bounced off the wall and landed upright, still smiling. The music got louder. The painted mouth began to move. I ran out and checked into a hotel. The music started at 2 a.m. coming from somewhere in the walls. I could hear soft footsteps in the hallway, getting closer to my door. A scratching sound like porcelain fingers on wood. I'm in my car now, driving. Just driving, no destination. The music follows. It's playing through the radio no matter what station I tune to. Even when I turn the radio off, it keeps playing. The clown is sitting in my back seat. I don't know how it got there. I can see it in the rearview mirror. The smile now wraps completely around its head. The eyes are solid black. The fingers are longer, jointed in too many places. The music is getting louder. The clown is moving. I can hear the soft scrape of porcelain on fabric as it crawls between the seats. The smell of sawdust fills the car. Cold fingers brush the back of my neck. I'm writing this on my phone while I drive. The music is deafening now, I can barely think. The clown is right behind my seat. I can feel its breath on my ear. Porcelain fingers are wrapping around my throat. I need someone to know what happened. Why they'll find my car wrapped around a tree or at the bottom of a lake. Why they'll find me with a porcelain-toothed smile stretched too wide across my face. Why they'll hear the faint notes of "Pop Goes the Weasel" at my funeral. Don't buy antique dolls. Don't trust kind smiles. And if you hear music box music at 3:17 a.m., don't open your eyes. The clown is up on my shoulder now. Its mouth is opening. The music is screaming in my head. I can't. Message ends. Found on a phone recovered from a fatal single-car accident on Highway 16. The driver's body was never located. The only other item in the vehicle was an antique clown doll, in perfect condition despite the crash. The doll was logged into evidence but disappeared from the police storage facility 3 days later. Multiple officers reported hearing music box music in the evidence room at 3:17 a.m. the night it vanished. The case remains unsolved. Personal note: if you're reading this and you find a vintage clown doll in an antique shop on Madison Street, walk away. No matter how good the price is, no matter how kind its smile looks, just walk away. And if you happen to know my niece Emma, never tell her about any of this. Let her keep collecting her Barbies. Let her stay innocent about what dolls can do in the dark. The music is starting again. I have to go now. The first time I saw the light flicker in the sealed-off basement, I told myself it was just faulty wiring. Old hospitals have their quirks, even after renovations. But now, 3 weeks later, I'm sitting in my car outside Memorial General at 10:45 p.m., gripping my flashlight so hard my knuckles hurt. I don't want to go in, but I need this job, and the night shift pays better than anything else I could get with my record. My name's Mike Reeves. I'm the night janitor here at Memorial General, working the 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. shift. Been doing it for about 2 months now, ever since they finished the big renovation. The hospital needed a complete overhaul after 40 years of use. They gutted most of the old wings, modernized everything, put in those fancy automated systems. But they left the basement alone. Said it wasn't worth the cost to dig down there. Just sealed it off instead. I pull myself out of the car. The November wind hits my face. My work boots crunch on the gravel of the employee lot. Security camera above the service entrance tracks my movement as I badge in. The lock clicks. I'm inside. The night shift is always quiet up here on the ground floor. Just the hum of vending machines and the occasional squeak of nurses' shoes on the polished floor. I check in at the security desk, wave to Bill, who's half asleep behind his monitors. He barely looks up from his crossword puzzle. "All yours, Mike," he says. Same thing he says every night. I grab my cart from the supply closet. The wheels need oil. They squeak all the way down the hall. I start my usual routine. Empty trash bins, mop floors, clean bathrooms, check supply levels. I do the first floor first, then the second, everything normal, everything quiet. But I can't stop thinking about the basement. It started 3 weeks ago. I was doing my rounds on the ground floor when I saw it through the small window in the basement access door. Just a quick flash of light from somewhere down the stairs. Like someone turning on a flashlight for a second. But that's impossible. The basement's sealed off. Has been since the renovation. The door's always locked, and I'm the only one with a key besides management. I ignored it that first night. Told myself I was seeing things. But then it happened again 2 nights later. And again. Always around 2 a.m. Always just a quick flash, like someone moving around down there with a light. Last night was different. I saw something else. Someone else. I was mopping near the basement door when I saw the light again. But this time, I looked through the window long enough to see a figure in a white coat. Just for a second. They walked right through the wall where the old operating room used to be. Just walked through it like it was nothing. The mop handle feels slick in my sweaty hands as I work my way through the second floor. My watch says 1:45 a.m. Almost time. I finish the floor early tonight. Stand there in the empty hallway, staring at my cart. I could just skip the basement door check. Nobody would know. It's not even really part of my rounds anymore since the area's sealed. But I have to know. The service stairs are quiet, except for my footsteps. Each floor down, the air gets colder. The renovations didn't reach this far. The walls still have that old institutional green paint peeling in places. My flashlight beam bounces off the concrete walls. 1:55 a.m. I'm standing in front of the basement door. The small safety window shows only darkness beyond. I pull out my keys with shaking hands. The lock turns smoothly. The basement stairs stretch down into blackness. My flashlight beam seems weaker here, like the darkness is thicker somehow. The air smells wrong, not just musty but chemical. Like old disinfectant and something else I can't place. The steps creak under my weight. 17 stairs. I count them every time. At the bottom, the beam of my flashlight sweeps across the basement. It's a huge space, mostly empty now. Support pillars cast long shadows. Old pipes run along the ceiling. The floor is bare concrete, stained dark in places. The sealed operating room would have been on the far wall. I can still see where they bricked it up during the renovation. Newer bricks, different color. A sign hanging crooked above reads, Operating Theater 3. My watch says 1:59 a.m. I wait. The temperature drops suddenly. I can see my breath now. The fluorescent light fixture above me flickers once, which is impossible because the power down here was cut months ago. 2 a.m. A light appears behind the bricked-up wall. Not bright, but clear, like sunshine through frosted glass. A shadow moves across it. My throat closes up. I should run. Every instinct screams at me to get out. but my feet won't move. The figure steps through the wall, white coat, surgical mask, dark eyes above it. They look right at me. I recognize that face. I've seen it before in the old photos in the hospital lobby. Dr. Sarah Chen, head of surgery, 1982 to 1985. Died during a procedure when a patient coded and grabbed a scalpel. The story was hospital legend. She takes a step toward me. Her feet don't quite touch the floor. I run. My flashlight hits the ground, rolls away. I slam into a pillar in the darkness, keep going. Find the stairs somehow. Take them 3 at a time. My lungs burn. I hit the door at full speed, crash through it. Sprawl on the floor of the ground floor hallway. The door slams behind me. For a long time, I just lay there, gasping. Eventually, I get up, lock the door. My hands won't stop shaking. I finish my shift somehow. Clean the 3rd floor. Restock supplies. Normal things. Real things. But I know I'll be back tomorrow night, and the night after that. Because now, I've seen her, and I have questions. The next few nights, I stay upstairs, do my regular rounds. But I can't stop thinking about what I saw. I spend my days off at the library, researching. Old newspaper articles, hospital records, anything I can find about Dr. Chen. The official story was simple. Patient went into cardiac arrest during routine surgery. In his panic, he grabbed a scalpel from the tray and slashed wildly. Cut Dr. Chen's carotid artery. She bled out before they could save her. But there were rumors, whispers about experimental procedures, missing patients, things that happened in Operating Theater 3 late at night off the books. A week after I saw her, I go back down. Same time, same place. This time I bring a digital recorder, a camera. I need proof. 4 a.m. The temperature drops right on schedule. The light appears behind the wall. She steps through again, looks at me with those dark eyes above the mask. My hand shakes as I raise the camera. Dr. Chen? My voice sounds small in the huge space. She tilts her head, takes another step forward. The camera dies, just powers off completely. The recorder too. Even my flashlight flickers and goes dark. In the darkness, I hear footsteps, getting closer. Something cold brushes my arm. You shouldn't be here. Her voice is like static, like a bad phone connection. No one should be here. What happened? I managed to ask. What really happened that night? Silence. Then, some doors should stay closed. The temperature drops even more. Ice crystals form on my jacket. I can't feel my fingers. He didn't kill me, she says. I killed him. Had to. He knew too much. About the others. About what we did down here. What did you do? Progress requires sacrifice. Her voice comes from right beside me now. The administration knew. They covered it up. Said he killed me. Easier that way. But the truth doesn't stay buried. Something cold presses against my throat, like steel. You should run now, she whispers. Run, and don't come back, or you'll join the others, behind the wall. I run. Faster than last time. Don't stop until I'm in my car, engine running, tires squealing out of the parking lot. I call in sick the next day, and the next. On the 3rd day, I go in to quit. The hospital administrator listens to my story without expression. When I finish, he opens his desk drawer, pulls out a stack of papers. You're not the first night janitor to see things in the basement, he says. Sign these. Non-disclosure agreement, 3 months severance pay. How many others? He doesn't answer, just slides the papers across the desk. I sign, take the money, walk out of Memorial General for the last time. But sometimes late at night I think about that basement, about what's behind that bricked-up wall, about progress and sacrifice and doors that should stay closed. And I wonder about the lights that still flicker down there every night at 2 a.m. Wonder who else might see them. Wonder what happens when they don't run away. Because the truth doesn't stay buried, not forever. And some hospitals have more than one kind of patient. I have a new job now, day shift at a warehouse across town. The pay's worse, but the only things in our basement are boxes and rats. But I keep the newspaper clippings, the photos, the research. Somewhere in there is the truth about what really happened in Operating Theater 3, about Dr. Chen and her experiments, about the others behind the wall. Maybe someday I'll be ready to look for it, to go back down those 17 steps and face what waits in the darkness. But not yet. For now I stay in the light, where the doors stay open and the only footsteps I hear are my own. Sometimes, though, when I drive past Memorial General at night, I look at the basement windows. And sometimes, just sometimes, I see a light flicker, see a shadow move past, and I drive faster. Because some stories don't end just because you stop telling them. Some doors don't stay closed, no matter how many bricks you use. And somewhere in the basement of Memorial General, at 2 a.m. every night, Dr. Chen is still making her rounds, still seeking progress, still requiring sacrifice, still waiting for someone else to count those 17 steps down into the darkness. I just pray it won't be me. The first knock came at exactly 3:27 a.m. I know because I checked my phone when the sound jolted me awake. 3 hard pounds on my apartment door, like someone using their fist instead of knuckles. I waited in bed, listening. Nothing. Just the hum of the ancient radiator and distant traffic from the cobblestone streets of Old Town. I'd only moved into 44 Blackwood Street 2 days ago. The rent was suspiciously cheap for a historic district apartment, but I didn't ask questions. After my divorce, I needed a fresh start and couldn't afford to be picky. The building was a narrow 4-story brownstone from the 1880s, with high ceilings and creaky wooden floors. My unit was on the 3rd floor, a small 1-bedroom with warped windows and peeling wallpaper. The next night, the knocking started again. Same time, 3:27 a.m. This time I got up. The floorboards groaned under my feet as I approached the door. My hand shook as I reached for the handle. I looked through the peephole. The dim hallway was empty. I opened the door. Nobody there. Just the flickering fluorescent light and the musty smell of old carpet. I asked Mrs. Chen from across the hall about it the next morning. She was watering the sad-looking plants by her door when I left for work. "Oh, you're hearing it already?" She didn't seem surprised. "That's why the rent is so low. Nobody stays in that unit very long." "What do you mean?" She lowered her voice. "Bad things happened there back in the 1950s. A woman killed herself. Slit her wrist in the bathtub after her husband left her. They say she still knocks, looking for him." I laughed it off. Ghost stories didn't scare me. I'd grown up in an old house that made plenty of strange noises. Buildings settle, pipes knock. There's always a logical explanation. But the knocking continued every night. Always 3 pounds. Always at 3:27 a.m. Always when I checked the hallway, there was no one there. After a week, dark circles formed under my eyes from lack of sleep. I started dreading sunset, knowing what was coming. I met other tenants. They all had stories. Mr. Rodriguez on the 2nd floor said he saw a woman in a white dress walking through his living room wall. The college kids in the basement unit heard crying in their bathroom at night. Old Mr. Peterson on the 4th floor refused to talk about what he'd seen, just shook his head and hurried inside when I asked. I installed a security camera facing my door. The footage showed nothing when the knocking happened, just an empty hallway. I checked the building's history at the local library. In 1952, Margaret Collins, age 32, was found dead in apartment 3B, my unit. Her husband had run off with his secretary. She left a note. "I'll wait for you to come home, James. I'll wait forever." The knocking got louder. Sometimes it was accompanied by scratching sounds like fingernails dragging across the wood. I tried sleeping with earplugs. They didn't help. I could feel the vibrations in my chest when the pounding started. One night, about 3 weeks after moving in, something changed. The knocking came as usual at 3:27 a.m., but this time, when I looked through the peephole, I saw her. A woman in a faded blue dress, her dark hair hanging in her face. Her skin was gray, almost translucent. She raised her head and looked directly at the peephole. Her eyes were black holes. I stumbled backward, my heart hammering. The door handle started turning on its own. I watched, paralyzed, as it slowly rotated. The door remained locked, but I could hear her voice now, muffled through the wood. "James? Why did you leave me, James? Please come home." My name isn't James. I tried to say this, but my throat was too dry. The temperature in the apartment dropped. I could see my breath. The lights flickered. "I've been so lonely, James. So cold. Let me in." The door shuddered in its frame. The knocking became a furious pounding that echoed through my skull. Pictures fell off the walls. A glass of water on my nightstand shattered. I ran to the bathroom and locked myself inside. The pounding followed me. It was coming from all directions now. The walls, the ceiling, the floor. The mirror cracked. Water began pouring from the faucet and tub spout on its own, steaming hot. In seconds, the room filled with fog. Through the steam, I saw writing appear on the mirror. "I'll never let you leave again." The shower curtain whipped back. There she was, standing in my tub. Her wrists were slashed open, dark liquid dripping onto the white porcelain. She reached for me with gray fingers. I broke through the bathroom door and ran. Down 3 flights of stairs, taking them 2 at a time. Out into the street in just my t-shirt and boxers. The cold night air hit my lungs like needles. I didn't stop running until I reached the 24-hour diner 6 blocks away. I never went back to the apartment, left all my stuff there. The landlord kept my security deposit, but I didn't care. I moved to a modern building across town with key card entry and security cameras. No history, no ghosts. But sometimes, when I wake up at night, I check my phone. If it's 3:27 a.m., I hold my breath and listen. So far, there's been no knocking, but I know she's still there in that old brownstone, waiting. Not for me, for James. She'll wait forever, just like she promised. A week after I moved out, I ran into Mrs. Chen at the grocery store. She told me someone new had already rented my old unit. A middle-aged man, recently divorced. His name was James. I thought about warning him, but what would I say? That his dead namesake's wife was waiting for him? That she'd mistake him for her long-lost husband? That she'd never let him leave? I said nothing, just nodded and walked away. That night at 3:27 a.m., I lay awake in my new apartment, wondering if she'd found what she was looking for, if she'd finally stopped knocking. I never found out what happened to the new James. I drove by the building once, months later. His name wasn't on the mailbox anymore. The unit was empty again. The rent sign was back in the window, still suspiciously cheap. Sometimes I think about Margaret Collins trapped in that loop of abandonment and desperate longing, knocking on doors for 70 years, searching for a man who never came home. I wonder if she knows he's long dead, if she cares, or if in her endless vigil time has lost all meaning. I don't believe in ghosts, not really. But I believe in grief, in loss, in the way pain can echo through decades like knocking in an empty hallway. I believe in the things we leave behind, the promises we break, the holes we tear in other people's lives. And I believe that at 3:27 a.m., in an old brownstone on Blackwood Street, a woman still waits for her husband to return, still knocks on doors that never open, still searches for a love that abandoned her. Just don't make the mistake I did. Don't open that door. Don't answer that knock. Some stories don't have happy endings. Some residents never leave, and some apartments stay vacant for a reason. The rent is cheap on Blackwood Street. But the cost? That's another matter entirely. Something is wrong with this house. I know that now. What I found in that chest changed everything. The footsteps I hear at night aren't my imagination. They're real, and they're getting closer. But I should start at the beginning. I moved in 3 weeks ago. The rent was cheap, too cheap for a 3-bedroom Victorian in this neighborhood. The realtor gave me some story about the previous tenant breaking the lease early and the owner wanting to fill it quickly. I didn't ask questions. I should have. The first week was normal. I unpacked my stuff, started my remote work routine, ordered furniture online, standard moving stuff. The house had some quirks, creaky floorboards, drafty windows, that musty smell old houses get. Nothing I couldn't handle. Then last Saturday, I decided to tackle the attic. The realtor mentioned I could use it for storage, but warned it needed cleaning. She wasn't kidding. The space was a mess, dust everywhere, cobwebs in every corner, old newspapers scattered around. The afternoon sun came through a small round window, lighting up the dust particles floating in the air. I found the chest pushed against the far wall, half hidden behind some old cardboard boxes. It was made of dark wood, about 2 feet wide and maybe 18 inches tall. Brass fittings on the corners. Heavy. A sturdy padlock held it shut. The lock looked old, covered in rust. I tried picking it with a paperclip, a skill I learned during my misspent youth. No luck. I went downstairs, grabbed my toolbox, and came back with a hammer and crowbar. The lock broke after a few solid hits. The chest's hinges creaked when I opened it. Inside, I found 2 bundles. The first was a stack of black and white photographs tied with twine. The second was a collection of letters, yellowed with age, held together with a rubber band that had gone brittle. I sat cross-legged on the dusty floor and started with the photos. The first showed the house. My house, but newer. The paint looked fresh, the garden well-maintained. A woman stood on the porch wearing a dress that looked like it was from the 1950s. She wasn't smiling. The next photo showed the same woman inside, standing at the bottom of the main staircase, still not smiling. Something about her eyes bothered me. They were too dark, too intense. More photos of the woman. In the kitchen, in the living room, always alone, never smiling. In each picture, she seemed to be staring directly at the camera with those unsettling eyes. The last photo made my stomach turn. The woman again, but this time in the attic. The same attic I was sitting in. She was standing in the exact spot where I'd found the chest. Her expression was different in this one. She was smiling. It wasn't a pleasant smile. I set the photos aside and picked up the letters. The rubber band crumbled when I touched it. The first letter was dated June 15, 1956. The handwriting was neat but rushed, like someone writing in a hurry. Dear Elizabeth, I know you're still in the house. I can hear you at night. The police don't believe me, but I know the truth. You didn't leave. You'll never leave. But this is my home now, and I won't let you drive me away like you did the others. Margaret. My hands were sweating as I read the next letter. Dear Elizabeth, the footsteps are getting closer each night. I hear the doors opening and closing. I've started sleeping with the lights on, but it doesn't matter, does it? You don't need doors. You never did. Margaret. The third letter was dated 2 weeks later. Dear Elizabeth, I saw you last night, standing at the foot of my bed. I won't write any more letters after this. I know now what you want. God help me. Margaret. That was the last letter. My hands were shaking as I put them back in the chest. The sun had set while I was reading, leaving the attic in shadows. The air felt colder. I closed the chest and went downstairs, made myself a strong drink, tried to rationalize what I'd read. Old houses always have stories. People make up ghost tales. Previous tenants play pranks. I told myself all the logical explanations. Then night came. I was in bed scrolling through my phone when I heard it. A floorboard creaked in the hallway outside my bedroom. I froze, holding my breath. Another creak, closer this time. I told myself it was just the house settling. Old houses make noise. But then I heard the distinctive sound of a door opening downstairs. The hinges on the guest bathroom door have a specific squeak. I'd been meaning to oil them. More footsteps, slow, deliberate, coming up the stairs. Each step distinct, purposeful. I lay there, perfectly still, phone forgotten in my hand. The footsteps reached the top of the stairs, started down the hallway, the floorboards protesting under each step. They stopped outside my door. The handle turned, slowly. I could hear the mechanism clicking. I threw myself out of bed, grabbed my keys and phone, and ran. Didn't even put on shoes. The footsteps followed me down the stairs. I fumbled with the front door lock, got it open, and sprinted to my car. I spent the night in a motel. The next morning, feeling foolish in the bright sunlight, I went back. Everything looked normal. No signs of disturbance. All the doors were shut. I checked every room, telling myself I had imagined it all. Then I saw the chest. It was in the middle of my bedroom floor, open. The photos were arranged in a perfect circle around it. In the center lay a new letter, the paper bright white and fresh. Dear James, welcome home. Elizabeth. I should have left then. Should have broken the lease, packed my stuff, and never looked back. But I didn't. Maybe it was stubbornness, maybe curiosity, maybe something else was keeping me here. The next few nights were quiet. Too quiet. No house sounds at all, just silence. Heavy silence that pressed against my ears. I researched the house's history online, found old newspaper articles. Elizabeth Morton disappeared in 1955. The police suspected her husband but could never prove anything. He moved away shortly after. Then Margaret Chen moved in. She disappeared in 1956. No body was ever found. Just a series of letters she'd written to her sister describing strange sounds in the house at night. More tenants came and left quickly after that. None stayed longer than 6 months. The house stood empty for long stretches between renters. Last night, the footsteps came back. I was in the kitchen making dinner. The first step creaked above my head. In the attic. I stopped chopping vegetables, knife frozen in my hand. More footsteps, crossing the attic floor. Then on the stairs leading down. Slow, regular, getting closer. I gripped the knife tighter. My palms were sweaty. The steps reached the second floor, started down the main stairs. I could hear each individual board groan under the weight. I should have run. Should have dropped the knife and bolted for the door. But I didn't. I stood there, waiting. The footsteps reached the bottom of the stairs, turned toward the kitchen. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. The steps entered the kitchen behind me. I could feel the presence. The air got colder. I turned around. She looked exactly like the photos. The dress, the dark eyes, that smile. "Hello, James," she said. Her voice was like dry leaves scraping across concrete. "I've been waiting for you. I'm writing this now from my car parked outside a coffee shop. My hands are still shaking. I can't go back to the house, but I know I have to. My things are there. My life is there. And somehow, I know she's waiting. She's always been waiting. The chest, the photos, the letters, they weren't a warning. They were an invitation. I check my phone. The sun is setting. It's time to go home. She's calling, and I'm going to answer. I should have left when I found the first footprints. That's what any sane person would have done, but I had a deadline, and the advance from the publisher was already spent. So I stayed. Now I'm recording this on my phone because someone needs to know what happened here. It started 3 weeks ago. I'd rented this cabin in northern Maine to finish my book. No Wi-Fi, no distractions, just me, my laptop, and enough supplies for 2 months. The cabin sits alone on 50 acres of dense forest. The nearest neighbor is 5 miles away, and the dirt road to get here turns into mud when it rains. The first week was perfect. I wrote more in 7 days than I had in the previous month. The silence helped. No traffic noise, no people, no notifications. Just the wind in the pines and occasional bird calls. Then I saw the footprints. I'd developed a routine of walking the perimeter each morning, coffee in hand, clearing my head before writing. The ground was soft from recent rain that Tuesday morning. The prints circled the entire cabin. They weren't animal tracks. They were clearly human shoes, about a size 11, the treads sharp and clear in the mud. They hadn't been there the night before. I'd have noticed them during my evening smoke on the porch. I checked all the windows and doors. Everything was locked, untouched. Nothing was missing inside. I told myself it was probably a hunter who got lost and was looking for help. But why not knock? And why circle the cabin multiple times? The prints were gone the next morning, washed away by overnight rain. I almost convinced myself I'd imagined them. Almost. But they came back 2 days later. Same pattern, circling the cabin. This time they stopped at each window, like someone had stood there looking in. I called the property manager, Bill, on the satellite phone. Reception was awful, but I got enough signal to ask if anyone else had access to the property. "Just me and you got the keys," he said. "Something wrong?" I told him about the footprints. There was a long pause. "Probably just hikers," he said finally. "Property backs up to state forest. They get lost sometimes. At night, the prints weren't there when I went to bed." Another pause. "Want me to send the sheriff out?" I almost said yes, but what would I tell them? Someone walked around my cabin but didn't do anything. I'd sound paranoid. "No," I said. "You're probably right about hikers. I'll put up some no trespassing signs." I hung up and immediately regretted it. The signs didn't help. The prints kept appearing every couple of days, always at night, always circling, always stopping at the windows. I started sleeping with a kitchen knife by the bed. I checked the locks obsessively. I kept the outside lights on all night, but they just created deep shadows in the trees where someone could hide. Then the whispering started. The first time, I thought it was just the wind. A sound like my name, barely audible, coming through the bedroom window. But the air was dead still that night. No wind at all. I sat up in bed, straining to hear. Nothing. Then it came again. "Michael." A whisper, right outside the window. I grabbed the knife and flipped on the lights. Nothing there. Just darkness beyond the glass. I didn't sleep that night. Or the next. The whispering came back every night after that. Sometimes just my name. Sometimes longer phrases I couldn't quite make out. Always in the dead of night. Always outside my window. I started recording on my phone, trying to capture the voice. The recordings picked up nothing but static. I was losing my mind. Had to be. Isolation playing tricks on me. But the footprints were real. I took pictures of those. A week after the whispering started, I found something new. Scratches on the window glass, like someone had been trying to get in. Fresh ones, the exposed glass catching the morning light. They were at every window now. I called Bill again. "I'm leaving," I told him. "Something's not right here." "The sheriff can be there in an hour," he said. He sounded worried now. "I'll wait." I packed while I waited, throwing clothes and my laptop in my bag. The scratching started as I was zipping it up, a slow, deliberate sound of nails on glass. I spun around. A face was pressed against the window. I froze. It looked human, but wrong somehow. The skin was too pale, almost gray. The eyes were black hollows. It smiled at me with too many teeth. I ran, grabbed my bag and phone, sprinted for the door. It was already moving around the cabin, faster than anything should be able to move. I fumbled with the locks, hands shaking. The door burst open before I could unlock it. The thing stood there, still smiling. Up close, I could see its skin wasn't just pale, it was transparent. I could see dark shapes moving underneath. "Michael," it whispered. "I've been waiting so long." That's all I remember. They found me 2 days later, walking on the highway 20 miles away. My clothes were shredded. My phone was gone. The cabin had burned to the ground. They blame me for the fire, say I must have knocked over a lamp in some kind of mental break. Say isolation and stress can make people snap. They don't believe me about the footprints or the face at the window. The photos on my phone are gone with it. But I know what I saw, and I know it's still out there. I'm in a hospital now. The doctors say I'm suffering from extreme dehydration and exposure. They've given me something to help me sleep. But I don't want to sleep. Because sometimes in the dark of night I hear it, a whisper coming from just outside my window. "Michael." End of recording. Police report. Addendum. Patient. Michael Sullivan was found deceased in his hospital room on October 15, 2023. Cause of death listed as cardiac arrest. Window was found open despite being locked from the inside. Multiple sets of footprints were discovered in the frost outside the third-floor window. Case remains open. I shouldn't have bought that mirror. That's what I keep telling myself as I sit here in the dark, too afraid to look at my own reflection. My hands shake as I type this on my phone. I need to document what's happening before it's too late. Maybe someone will find this and understand. Maybe they'll believe me. 3 weeks ago, I was just a normal guy looking to furnish my new apartment in downtown Chicago. I had finally saved enough for a decent one-bedroom after 5 years of grinding at my accounting job. The walls were bare, and I needed something to make the place feel less empty. I found the mirror at a cluttered antique shop in Wicker Park. The shop smelled like dust and old wood. Piles of furniture and random junk filled every corner. The mirror stood in the back, partially hidden behind a stack of chairs. It was tall, about 6 feet, with an ornate bronze frame. The bronze had turned dark green in spots. The glass looked clean despite the dust everywhere else. The old woman at the counter wanted $200 for it. I got her down to $150. She seemed eager to sell it now that I think about it. Should have been my first warning. Getting it home was a pain. The mirror was heavier than it looked. I had to pay extra for the Uber XL, and the driver helped me carry it up to my 4th-floor apartment. I hung it in my bedroom that night, opposite my bed. It looked good there, fancy but not too flashy. The first few days were normal. I'd get ready for work in the morning, check my outfit in the mirror, normal stuff. Then I started noticing things. Small things at first. One morning, I was tying my tie, and I saw something move in the corner of the mirror. Just a quick shadow, like someone walking past a doorway. But I live alone, and I was standing still. I turned around. Nothing there. I checked every room. Everything was locked up tight. It happened again 2 days later. This time the shadow was bigger, more defined, like a person's silhouette passing right behind my reflection. I spun around so fast I almost fell. Empty room, empty apartment. Then the laughing started. I was getting ready for bed, just a normal Tuesday night. I glanced in the mirror while taking off my watch. A soft laugh echoed through the room, like someone trying not to be heard, but failing. A woman's laugh, high-pitched and breathy. I froze. The sound came again, closer this time. It seemed to come from inside the mirror itself. I stared at my reflection. My face looked pale, eyes wide with fear. Behind me in the mirror, a shadow moved. The laugh came again, right next to my ear. I ran out of the bedroom, slept on the couch that night, told myself I was being stupid, that I was just tired from working late. The next day I avoided looking in the mirror. Got dressed in the bathroom instead, but that night lying on the couch I heard it again. The same soft laugh drifting out from my bedroom. I pulled the blanket over my head like a kid hiding from monsters. I started sleeping at my girlfriend Sarah's place. Didn't tell her why. Just said my apartment was being fumigated. She could tell something was wrong. Said I looked tired, jumpy. Asked if I was okay. I lied and blamed work stress. After a week of avoiding my own bedroom, I knew I had to face it. Couldn't keep sleeping on Sarah's couch forever. Had to deal with whatever was happening. I went back to my apartment on a Sunday morning. Figured daylight would make it less scary. Wrong. The bedroom was cold when I walked in. The mirror looked normal, just showing my messy room. I stood in the doorway, watching. Nothing moved. No sounds. I stepped closer. My reflection did the same. Another step. Still normal. I was 3 feet from the mirror when I saw it. A face peering over my reflected shoulder. A woman's face, pale white, with dark hollow eyes and black hair hanging in wet strands. I couldn't move. My body felt frozen in place. The face smiled, showing too many teeth. The laugh came again right behind me. But in the real world, I was alone. The woman existed only in the mirror. She raised one white hand and placed it on my reflection's shoulder. I felt cold pressure on my actual shoulder, fingers digging in. The laugh turned into a giggle, then a full cackle. I ran, grabbed my keys and phone, and ran out of the apartment. Spent the next 2 days in a hotel. When I came back, I covered the mirror with a sheet. That worked for about 6 hours. I woke up at 3 a.m. to find the sheet on the floor. The woman stood in the mirror, full body visible now, long white dress, dripping wet. She pressed her hands against the glass like she was trying to push through. I tried to sell the mirror, posted it on Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, everywhere. No takers. Tried to give it away for free. Nothing. Called the antique shop. Number disconnected. Went back to the store. Empty building. For lease sign in the window. Like it had never existed. The woman appears more often now. Sometimes she brings friends. Other pale faces with dark eyes, all laughing, all watching. They follow my reflection around the mirror, reaching for me with long white fingers. Last night was the worst. I woke up to the laughing. The mirror glowed in the darkness. The woman stood there with 5 others, all pressing against the glass. Cracks started appearing, spreading like spider webs across the surface. The laughing got louder. The cracks grew wider. I saw hands pushing through, glass breaking outward. I'm in a motel now. Called in sick to work. The mirror is still in my bedroom. I can't go back there. Can't sleep. Every reflective surface makes me jump. Windows at night. The blank screen of my phone. The chrome faucet in this motel bathroom. I think I hear laughing in the hallway. My phone screen just went black. There's a face in the reflection. She's smiling at me. I have to G. The rest of the document appears to be corrupted or incomplete. Several attempts to recover the missing text have failed. The author's current whereabouts are unknown. I found scratch marks in the bathroom mirror this morning. 3 parallel lines like something dragged its claws across the glass. They weren't there when I went to bed. I'm sure of it. I checked every room when I first arrived at this cabin yesterday, a habit from living alone in the city. The mirror was clean then. Now it's not. I booked this place as a weekend getaway to clear my head after my divorce. It seemed perfect. No cell service, no Wi-Fi, no distractions. Just me, my laptop for writing, and the solitude of the mountains. The rental listing mentioned a master bedroom, kitchen, living room, and bathroom. Nothing about an attic, but I heard it last night, something moving up there. The first sounds came around 2 a.m. I was still awake, working on my novel. At first I thought it was just the wind or settling wood. Old cabins make noise. But then I heard distinct footsteps, the slow, deliberate kind. They crossed from one end of the ceiling to the other right above my bed. The floorboards creaked with each step. I got up and checked the ceiling with my flashlight. No access panel or trapdoor was visible. The footsteps stopped when I moved around. I convinced myself it was just my imagination running wild in an unfamiliar place. I went back to bed, took a sleeping pill, and eventually passed out. But this morning, it wasn't just the mirror. My coffee mug from last night had moved from the kitchen counter to the middle of the living room floor. The throw blanket on the couch was bunched up in a corner, though I'd left it neatly folded. And there were more scratch marks, shallow grooves in the wooden door frame leading to the bedroom. The scratches looked fresh. The exposed wood was lighter than the surrounding surface, no dust or aging visible in the grooves. They started about shoulder height and ran down toward the floor, as if something had dragged its claws while passing through the doorway. I'm not a believer in the supernatural. I deal in facts, logic, concrete evidence. But I know what I heard last night, and I know these things in my cabin have moved. The rational part of my brain says there must be an explanation. Maybe someone else has a key, or there's an animal that found its way inside. The rest of my brain is screaming at me to get in my car and drive away. But I paid for the whole weekend, and the next rental isn't due until Monday. If there is someone or something in this cabin, I need to figure out what it is. I'm going to document everything that happens, keep a record. Maybe writing it down will help me make sense of it. It's 9:47 a.m. now. I've made a fresh pot of coffee and pulled out my laptop. The scratching sounds have started again above me. Slow, methodical. Like something is trying to dig through the ceiling. The noise stops and starts randomly. Sometimes it's just a few scratches, then silence for 20 minutes. Other times it goes on for several minutes straight. It's moving around up there. I've tried knocking on the walls, shouting, even blasting music from my phone, but nothing seems to affect it. I've walked around the cabin's exterior 3 times now, looking for any way something could get into an attic space. The roof is solid, no missing shingles or holes. No visible vents big enough for an animal. The only unusual thing I noticed was a small window near the peak of the roof, about 15 feet up. It's painted shut from what I can tell, covered in years of grime. But something caught my eye. Fresh scrape marks in the dirt and leaves below that window, as if something had recently climbed up or down the wall. 11:23 a.m. The scratching has stopped, but now I'm finding more evidence that something's been moving around the cabin while I sleep. There's a book on the coffee table that I know was on the bedroom nightstand last night. My jacket, which I hung by the door, is now lying in the bathtub. And I keep finding these strange marks. Not just scratches, but dark smudges on the walls about shoulder height, like something's been brushing against them as it moves through the house. The smudges look almost like handprints, but they're wrong somehow. Too large, fingers too long and twisted. I tried cleaning one off with a paper towel. The mark was sticky, left a dark residue on the towel. It smelled metallic, like copper or blood. 1:45 p.m. I tried calling the rental company, but there's no cell service up here. I could drive down the mountain to get a signal, but something stops me every time I reach for my keys. What if whatever's up there comes down while I'm gone? What if it blocks the doors, traps me out? At least now I can see what it's doing, track its movements. I've started keeping a log of the sounds and where they come from. They're definitely more active on the east side of the cabin, above the bedroom. Every few hours there's a heavy dragging sound, like something large being pulled across the floor. Then the scratching starts again in a new location. 3:12 p.m. I found something that changes everything. I was checking the closets again, looking for any hidden access to the attic, when I noticed one of the ceiling panels in the hallway was slightly discolored. I got a chair and pushed on it. The panel moved. I used my phone's flashlight to look through the gap. There's definitely an attic up there. I could see exposed beams and insulation. And something else. In the beam of my flashlight, I saw what looked like claw marks covering the wooden beams. Hundreds of them crossing and overlapping. Some looked old, others freshly carved into the wood. But that's not the worst part. There were things stored up there. Suitcases, backpacks, what looked like sleeping bags, all covered in dust and cobwebs. How long have they been there? Who did they belong to? The rental listing said this cabin was newly renovated and had only been available for the past year. 4:40 p.m. The sounds are getting louder, more frequent. The dragging noise comes every few minutes now, and there's something new. A low, wet sound, like breathing, but wrong. Too heavy, too rhythmic. It follows me as I move through the cabin, always staying directly overhead. I tried taking pictures of the scratches and smudges, but they don't show up clearly in photos. The marks look blurred, distorted. Even the physical evidence of whatever's up there doesn't want to be documented. 6:15 p.m. The sun is starting to set. The shadows in the cabin are getting longer, darker. The temperature has dropped at least 10 degrees in the past hour. I've turned on every light in the place, but the corners still seem too dark, too deep. I found more items that aren't mine. A woman's watch on the kitchen counter. A child's stuffed animal behind the couch. A man's wallet, empty except for an expired driver's license from 3 years ago. I looked up the name when I still had internet yesterday. The man was reported missing in these mountains. His car was found at a trailhead 5 miles from here. 7:30 p.m. Something changed in the past hour. The sound stopped completely. No scratching, no dragging, no breathing, just total silence. It's worse somehow. The quiet feels heavy, expectant, like the moment before a storm breaks. I've pushed furniture against the bedroom door, lined up kitchen knives on the nightstand. I have my car keys in my pocket, though I'm not sure I could make it to the vehicle if I needed to. The darkness outside is absolute. No moon, no stars visible through the clouds. 8:45 p.m. I heard it. A new sound. Wood splintering. Then a loud crack from the hallway. I opened the bedroom door just enough to peek out. The ceiling panel I'd found earlier was hanging open. Something dark was moving in the gap. I slammed the door shut and wedged a chair under the handle. For a moment there was silence. Then I heard it. The sound of something heavy dropping onto the hallway floor. Footsteps, but not like before. Heavier. Closer. The doorknob started to turn. The chair creaked against the door. I backed away, grabbing the largest knife from the nightstand. The scratching started again, but not on the ceiling this time. Right on the door. Long, slow scrapes of claws on wood. A voice came from the other side. It sounded almost human, but distorted, like someone trying to remember how to speak. It said my name. Then it said other names. Names I found later on missing persons reports from this area. Dozens of them, whispered one after another. 9:20 p.m. The door is starting to splinter. The chair won't hold much longer. I can see something pushing through the gaps. Long, dark fingers, too many joints, skin like wet leather. The smell is overwhelming now. Copper and rot and something else. Something older. I'm typing this on my phone. Maybe someone will find it, understand what happened here. Why so many people have vanished in these mountains. What lives in the spaces above these rental cabins, these renovated properties with their hidden attics and sealed windows. The door is breaking. I can hear wood cracking, see the hinges pulling from the frame. The thing on the other side is still whispering names. It's added a new one to its list. Mine. 9:47 p.m. If you're reading this, don't rent cabin 254 on Mountain View Road. Don't rent any cabin up here. They're not empty. They were never empty. The scratches are getting closer. The door won't last another minute. I can see it clearly now, coming through the splintered wood. God help me. I can see. The first thing I noticed when I pulled into the driveway of my new house was the woods. They stretched behind the property like a wall of darkness, even in broad daylight. The realtor hadn't mentioned them. The listing photos must have been taken at angles that didn't show the forest. I killed the U-Haul's engine and sat there for a minute, staring at the tree line. Something about it made my skin prickle. I had just started unloading boxes when I heard the shuffle of feet on gravel. An old man stood at the edge of my driveway, leaning on a wooden cane. His face was weathered, and his eyes had that cloudy look that some elderly people get. But they fixed on me with surprising intensity. "You the new owner?" he asked. His voice was rough, like he didn't use it much. "Yeah, just moved in from Chicago. I'm Dan Marshall." I walked over and held out my hand. He didn't take it. "Listen carefully. Don't go in those woods behind your house. Ever." He jabbed his cane toward the tree line, especially not at night. I forced a laugh. "Why's that?" He just shook his head. "Been here 40 years. Lost 3 neighbors who didn't listen." He turned and started shuffling away. "Wait, what do you mean, lost?" But he kept walking, not looking back. I went back to unloading boxes, trying to shake off the weird encounter. The old guy was probably just one of those neighborhood characters who likes scaring newcomers. Every suburb has them. The rest of the day passed in a blur of unpacking and arranging furniture. By evening, I had the basics set up: bed, couch, TV, kitchen stuff. I ordered pizza and sat on my back deck eating it, looking out at the woods. The trees were huge old oaks and maples, their branches twisting together overhead to block most of the sky. The undergrowth was thick with bushes and vines. As the sun started to set, shadows crept across my yard. The temperature dropped quickly. A cool breeze carried the smell of decay, rotting leaves, damp earth. Normal forest smells, but something about them made me uneasy. I caught movement at the tree line. Probably just a deer or raccoon. But I remembered the old man's warning and went inside, locking the door behind me. That night I couldn't sleep. The house made unfamiliar settling noises. Tree branches scraped against the siding. Around 2 a.m., I got up to get water from the kitchen. As I passed the sliding glass door to the deck, I froze. There were footprints in the dewy grass. Human footprints leading from the woods to right below my bedroom window. They weren't there earlier. My heart started pounding. I flicked on the outdoor lights and grabbed a baseball bat from my sports equipment box. The prints were clear. Someone had definitely been walking in my yard. Recently. I called the police. 2 officers came out and looked around with flashlights. They found the footprints, but said there wasn't much they could do without signs of attempted break-in. They'd increase patrols in the area. One officer suggested setting up security cameras. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. I sat in my living room with all the lights on, jumping at every sound. When dawn finally came, I went out to check the footprints again. They were gone. The grass showed no sign anyone had walked there. I spent that morning installing security cameras and motion sensor lights. The next few days passed normally. I started my remote work job, got into a routine, but I kept thinking about those footprints and the old man's warning. One afternoon, I was taking out trash when I noticed something odd at the edge of the woods. A scrap of fabric caught on a branch, fluttering in the breeze. Dark red like dried blood. I walked closer. The fabric looked old and weathered, but it was definitely cloth, maybe from clothing. As I reached for it, I noticed more scraps deeper in the trees, and what looked like drag marks in the dead leaves covering the ground. I followed the trail about 20 feet into the woods. The temperature seemed to drop with each step. The scraps of fabric led to a small clearing. In the center was a circle of stones, each about the size of a fist. They were arranged too precisely to be natural. In the middle of the circle was a small animal skull, probably a raccoon or possum, but it had been placed there deliberately, facing the direction of my house. My hands were shaking as I took photos with my phone. This had to be some kind of teenage prank. Kids messing around in the woods trying to scare the new neighbor. But as I turned to leave, I saw more drag marks leading deeper into the forest, and more bits of torn, blood-stained cloth. I started walking faster, following the trail. The woods got darker as the trees grew thicker. I lost track of how far I'd gone. The drag marks continued, along with other disturbing signs. Broken branches at head height, like something tall had pushed through. Deep scratches in tree bark. More circles of stones. My phone had no signal. The sun was getting low. I decided to head back before it got dark. That's when I realized I couldn't tell which direction I'd come from. All the trees looked the same. My heart started racing. I picked a direction and walked quickly, looking for anything familiar. After 10 minutes, I knew I was lost. The forest had gone completely silent. No birds, no insects, just the sound of my breathing and footsteps on dead leaves. Then I heard it. A soft voice somewhere behind me. Speaking words I couldn't quite make out. I started running. Branches whipped my face. I tripped over roots and scrambled back up. The voice followed, getting closer. Now there were more voices all around me, speaking in whispers. I burst through some bushes and saw my backyard ahead. I sprinted for the house, not looking back. Inside, I slammed and locked the door, then closed all the blinds. That night, the whispers came again. They started at the edge of the woods, then moved closer to the house. I huddled in my bedroom, every light blazing, as soft voices drifted up from right below my window. They spoke in a language I didn't recognize. The words seemed to slither through the walls. My security cameras showed nothing but static. Just before dawn, the voices stopped. I checked outside. More footprints in the grass, but these were different. They were too long, the toes oddly spaced, and they led in both directions to and from the woods. I drove to the old man's house as soon as it was light. He opened the door before I could knock. "You went in the woods," he said. Not a question. "What's out there? What's making those footprints?" He sighed heavily. "Sit down. You need to know what you're dealing with now." Inside, His house was crammed with books about local history and folklore. News clippings covered one wall, missing persons reports going back decades. All people who had lived near these woods. This area wasn't always suburbs, he said, lowering himself into an armchair. Long ago, it was sacred ground to the native peoples. Not for worship, for containment. They built elaborate rituals to keep something trapped in the forest, something that was here before humans. What something? They didn't have a name for it. Their stories just called it the hungry dark. A consciousness that lives in the spaces between trees. It feeds on human minds, first drawing them in with whispers and visions, then he gestured at the missing persons reports. That's insane, I said. There has to be a rational explanation. 3 years ago, the Robertson family lived in your house. Their teenage son started hearing voices from the woods. He'd sleepwalk toward the trees at night. His parents installed locks, cameras, alarms. Nothing helped. One morning, they found his bed empty, just bloodstains on the sheets and drag marks leading into the forest. He pulled out a photo album. The pictures showed police searches, volunteers combing the woods, dogs refusing to enter certain areas, strange markings on trees. They never found him, or any of the others. The police blame runaways, animal attacks, accidents. They don't want to see the truth. Which is what? The woods are hungry. And once they notice you, they don't stop until they feed. He leaned forward. You have 2 choices now. Move away immediately, or learn the rituals that might protect you. I thought about the whispers under my window, the footprints that vanished, the circles of stones. Teach me, I said. He nodded and pulled out a thick leather journal. First, you'll need salt, lots of it, and iron, cold iron, not steel. The nails must be hand-forged. That was 3 months ago. I'm still in the house. Every night I refresh the salt lines and check the iron nails driven into the door frames. I've learned the protective chants in languages that hurt my throat to speak. The whispers still come, but they stay at the edge of the woods now. Sometimes I see shapes moving between the trees at twilight, tall, fluid shapes that don't quite match any human or animal form. I know I should move, but something holds me here. Maybe it's stubbornness, maybe it's curiosity. Or maybe the woods have already gotten into my mind, pulling me slowly toward them day by day. The old man checks on me regularly. He says I'm doing well with the rituals. But sometimes I catch him looking at me with concern, like he's searching my face for signs of something. Last week, I woke up on my back deck in the middle of the night. I have no memory of going outside. There was dirt under my fingernails and leaves in my hair. The whispers are getting louder. Some nights I can almost understand the words. I should leave. I need to leave. But the woods are so beautiful at twilight. And the voices are starting to sound like home. I think I'll go for a walk tonight, just to the edge of the trees, just to listen for a while. After all, the woods are waiting and they're so very, very hungry. I was wrong about apartment 4B being empty. Dead wrong. The first noise came 3 weeks after I moved in. A soft thud from above, like something heavy being set down. I ignored it. The building was old, pipes groaned, floors creaked. Normal stuff. But it kept happening. Small sounds at first. Footsteps crossing the ceiling at 3 a.m. The scrape of furniture being dragged. A door closing. Each time I told myself it was nothing, had to be nothing. The landlord confirmed 4B was vacant when I signed my lease for 3B last month. Nobody lived there. I called maintenance anyway. Just checking. Is anyone living in 4B now? No, sir, the guy said. Been empty 6 months. Owner's trying to sell it. I hung up and stared at the ceiling. The footsteps had gotten louder lately. More frequent. Always at night. Always when I was trying to sleep. Sometimes they'd pace back and forth for hours, the same path across my bedroom ceiling. Last night, things changed. I jolted awake at 2 a.m. to the sound of running water. Not the usual pipe sounds, this was a bathtub being filled, clear as day, coming from directly above my bathroom. I lay there listening, my heart pounding. The water ran for exactly 17 minutes. I counted every second, then silence, until the splashing started. I got out of bed, grabbed my phone for a flashlight, and headed for the hall. The building was dead quiet except for Mrs. Chen's TV next door. She always fell asleep with it on. I walked to the stairwell, my bare feet cold on the tiles. Fourth floor was darker than usual. The hallway light was out, leaving just the red exit sign at the far end. I swept my phone light across the walls, looking for 4B. The beam caught something on the floor outside the door. A man's shoe. Brown leather Oxford, badly scuffed. Just one, placed perfectly centered in front of 4B like it was waiting for me. I picked it up. The leather was wet, dripping onto the carpet. It smelled like river water. Thomas. The whisper came from behind the door. Soft, barely audible, but it was my name. I dropped the shoe. It landed with a wet thud. Thomas. Louder this time. A woman's voice, but wrong somehow, like she was talking through water. I backed away. My phone light flickered, dimmed. The whisper came again, right next to my ear. I've been waiting for you. I ran. Down 3 flights of stairs, nearly falling, back to my apartment. Slammed the door, locked it, grabbed my baseball bat from the closet. Stood there in the dark, breathing hard, listening. Footsteps above. Slow, deliberate, crossing to my bedroom. Water dripping through my ceiling, forming a puddle on my floor. The drops were red. That was an hour ago. I'm writing this from my car in the parking lot. The lights are still on in my bedroom window. A figure keeps passing by. Tall, female, dripping water. Every few minutes she presses her face against the glass and mouths my name. I'm not going back up there, but I know she'll find me eventually. They always do, the ones who drown in that bathtub. And they're always looking for company. The thing is, I remember that shoe. I was wearing its pair the night Sarah died. The night I held her under the water until the bubbles stopped. The night I carried her body down 4 flights of stairs and into the river. I thought I'd gotten away with it, but the dead have a way of rising. Sarah's at my car window now. Her skin is gray and bloated, her hair floating like seaweed around her face. Water streams from her mouth as she smiles. Found you, she gurgles. The door locks just clicked open on their own. I hear splashing in the back seat. This will be my last update. If you're reading this, stay away from apartment 4B. Some things should stay buried. Some silences should never be broken. But most importantly, always check the bathtub before you go to sleep. You never know who might be waiting there under the water, whispering your name. I have to go now. Sarah's calling. And I can't hold my breath forever. The end. I kept you waiting long enough. You found me up here in 4B. No more running. No more hiding. It's time to face what I did. The bathroom door creaks open. I see your reflection in the mirror, still wearing that blue dress from that night, dark hair plastered to your face. Water pools at your feet. Ready for your bath, Thomas? Your hands are cold on my shoulders, strong. I don't resist as you guide me toward the tub. The water is black as river mud. I missed you, you whisper, pushing me down. We have so much catching up to do. The water closes over my head. Your fingers tangle in my hair, holding me under. Bubbles stream from my mouth as I scream, but that's okay. We have all the time in the world now. Somewhere far below, in apartment 3B, a new tenant is lying awake, listening to the splashing sounds from above, wondering why the empty unit isn't so empty after all. They'll find out soon enough. We all do in the end. The water is in my lungs now. Everything's getting dark. See you soon, Sarah. I've kept you waiting long enough. The old camera sat in my hands, heavy and cold. I found it at Jimmy's Antiques on 23rd Street last Tuesday. $20. The price tag said, vintage Rolleiflex, as is. I didn't know if it worked, didn't care. Something about its scratched metal body and clouded viewfinder pulled me in. 3 days later, my hands shook as I spread the developed photos across my kitchen table. In every single one, there he stood. A man in a brown tweed suit and matching hat, maybe from the 1950s. Sometimes at the edge of the frame, sometimes dead center. The thing is, I shot these photos alone. I'm sure of it. Let me back up. I should tell this right. I'm not a photographer. Never was. I fix air conditioners for a living. Not exactly an artistic job. But last week, walking past Jimmy's shop window, that camera caught my eye. It sat between a rusty toaster and some kid's baseball trophy covered in dust. I went inside without thinking. Jimmy, all liver spots and white stubble, barely looked up from his newspaper. Need something? The camera, in the window. He shrugged. Works far as I know. Lady brought it in last month, estate sale stuff. The price tag hung from a frayed string. $20 seemed like nothing for something that solid. The metal felt right in my hands. Heavy. Real. Not like the plastic digital things everyone uses now. I'll take it, I said. At home, I found an old manual online. Spent 2 hours learning how to load the film. The mechanisms clicked in Word like they should. I bought 3 rolls of black and white film from that specialty camera shop downtown, the one that somehow stays in business. Saturday morning, I took the camera out. Clear sky, good light. I started in my neighborhood, brownstones, corner stores, kids playing basketball. Normal stuff. The viewfinder showed everything upside down, but I got used to it. Click, click, click. The weight of the camera felt good, professional. Each shot took time to line up, to focus. No instant preview, no delete button. Just the mechanical snap of the shutter. I walked for hours, down to the river, through the park, up to the old industrial district with its empty warehouses. Shot whatever caught my eye. Pigeons on power lines, rust patterns on metal doors, shadows of fire escapes. Used up all 3 rolls. The camera shop guy said they'd have the photos ready Tuesday. I hadn't shot film since I was a kid. Forgot how you had to wait. Tuesday came. The prints felt thick in the envelope. Good paper. I waited until I got home to look at them. The first photo showed my street, early morning. Empty sidewalk, parked cars, nothing special. Except there he was. Standing by a fire hydrant. Brown tweed suit, matching hat pulled low. Old-style clothes, like from an old movie. Must be a coincidence. Just some guy walking by. Second photo. The basketball court, kids playing. And there, between 2 teenagers going for a rebound, the same man. Same suit, same hat, standing perfectly still. My hands started sweating. Photo after photo. The river. Empty warehouse. Coffee shop window. Every single one had him. Sometimes far back, sometimes right in front. Always the same position. Standing straight, arms at his sides. Face shadow dark under that hat brim. I remember taking these shots. I was alone most of the time. When other people were around, they moved, blurred. But he was always sharp. Perfect focus. The last photo made me drop the whole stack. It showed my kitchen. Through the viewfinder, before I took the shot. Empty room, morning light through the window. But in the print, he stood at my sink, looking straight at the camera. At me. I haven't touched the camera since. It sits in my closet now. But last night I heard something from in there. A click. Like a shutter. I'm writing this down because I need to tell someone. Need to make sense of it. The photos are spread out on my table as I type. 87 pictures. He's in every one. Wait. The closet door just creaked open. I hear footsteps. There's something else I haven't mentioned. In that last kitchen photo, the one where he's looking at the camera, I can see his face now. I didn't notice it before. He's holding a camera too. A Rolleiflex. Just like mine. And his face. God. His face is mine. Older. Weathered. But mine. The footsteps are closer now. Heavy shoes on hardwood. I smell something. Old wool, maybe. like a suit that's been in storage for decades. I don't want to turn around, but I will. I have to know. Maybe he wants his camera back. 3 weeks have passed since I first wrote those words. Things have changed. I need to record what happened next. Need to understand it myself. That night, when I heard the footsteps, I did turn around. The man, my older self, stood there in his tweed suit. He held up his camera, pointed at me. Click. I didn't run, couldn't. We stared at each other for a long time. His face was mine, but lined with years I haven't lived yet. Eyes tired, but intense. Finally, he spoke. His voice rasped like old paper. You bought the camera. I nodded. Good. My turn is done then. He set his Rolleiflex on my table. The exact same camera. Even the scratches matched. Your turn now. Turn for what? He sat heavily in my kitchen chair, took off his hat. His hair was gray, thinning, like my father's before he died. To watch, he said, to record, to make sure things happen like they should. What things? He shook his head. You'll see. When you take the pictures, important moments, small things that matter, you have to be there, have to capture them. Why me? Because I was you, and now you're me. He stood up, straightened his jacket. The camera shows you where to go, what to photograph. Follow its pull, you'll understand. How long? Until the next one comes. Like you came for me. He walked to my door, stopped. Don't fight it. The camera chose you. Like it chose me. Like it chose the one before me. Then he was gone. Left his camera behind. I didn't sleep that night. Stared at the 2 identical cameras on my table. In the morning, the old one, his, had vanished. Like he had. But mine remained. And it pulled at me, a tug in my mind, showing me places, moments, things I needed to photograph. The first one came 3 days later, a street corner downtown. The camera drew me there at exactly 8:47 a.m. I stood and waited, watched through the viewfinder. A woman rushed past, late for work maybe, dropped her keys without noticing. I took the photo. Behind her, a man bent to pick them up, called out, ran to return them. 2 months later, I shot their wedding. That's how it goes now. The camera shows me where, when, what matters. Small moments that ripple outward, lives connecting, changing. Sometimes it's simple things. A child finding a lost dog, a stranger helping with dropped groceries. Other times, darker things. Car accidents I can't prevent. Fires I can only document. I'm there for all of them. Recording, watching, making sure they happen. The pictures don't show me anymore. I'm not the ghost in them now. That was him, my future self, completing his watch. Now I stand outside the frame, observing, preserving. Some nights I stare at the camera and wonder how long, how many years, until I put on that tweed suit, until I find the next watcher and pass the camera on. The pull is stronger now, more frequent. It wakes me at odd hours, shows me places across the city, moments I can't miss. I've stopped fixing air conditioners. Don't need money much anymore. The camera provides. Leads me to what I need. My hair is graying at the temples. Lines forming around my eyes. Time passes differently now, measured in photographs, not days. Sometimes I dream of him, my older self, standing in doorways, on street corners, watching me watch others, making sure I do my job. The camera sits beside me as I write this, heavy, cold, waiting. It's pulling again, showing me somewhere I need to be, someone whose moment needs recording. I have to go now, have to watch, have to preserve. After all, that's what the camera chose me for, like it chose him, like it will choose another. Click. The knocking started on my first night at 3 a.m. 3 sharp raps against my door. I was awake, unpacking boxes. No one was there when I opened it. That was 2 weeks ago. Now I sit in my bed every night staring at the door, waiting. The knocking comes like clockwork. Always at 3 a.m., always 3 knocks, always no one there. I found this place through a Craigslist ad. Historic boarding house, furnished rooms, utilities included, $600 a month. The price was too good to pass up, especially in downtown Portland. The owner, Mr. Harris, met me out front. He was tall, maybe 70, with thick glasses and thinning gray hair. "You're looking at room 210, he said, leading me up creaky wooden stairs. It's been vacant for a few months. The room was basic but clean. Queen bed, dresser, desk, mini fridge. High ceilings, hardwood floors, one window overlooking the street. The bathroom down the hall was shared with 3 other tenants, but I rarely saw them. I moved in that weekend. The first few days were normal. I went to work at the coffee shop, came home, watched Netflix, slept. Then the knocking started. At first I thought it was another tenant, but no one was ever there. I started staying up, watching through the peephole. The hallway remained empty. The knocks came anyway. After a week, I asked Mr. Harris about it. Knocking. He adjusted his glasses. "What time did you say?" 3 a.m., every night. His face changed, just for a second. Then he smiled. "Old building. Pipes make noise sometimes." "These aren't pipes. They're knocks. On my door specifically." He was quiet for a moment. "Room 210 had a tenant before you. James Chen. Nice young man, worked in tech. He disappeared about 6 months ago." "Disappeared?" "Left without notice. His belongings were still there. Police investigated but found nothing. No family to contact." He paused. "They never found him." I went back to my room and Googled James Chen Portland missing. A few local news articles came up. 32-year-old software engineer, last seen leaving work on March 15th. Car found in the boarding house parking lot. No signs of foul play. Case went cold. That night, I lay in bed waiting. My phone showed 2:59 a.m. The air felt heavy. At exactly 3 knocks rang out. Loud, clear, deliberate. I jumped up and yanked the door open. Empty hallway. But the air was cold. Much colder than it should have been. I started sleeping less. Dark circles formed under my eyes. At work, I'd jump at every sudden noise. My manager asked if everything was okay. I said I was fine. The next week, I ran into one of my neighbors in the bathroom. Tom from 208. Early 20s, music student. "Hey, weird question," I said, trying to sound casual. "Do you ever hear knocking at night?" He looked confused. "Knocking? Yeah, around 3 a.m.? No, man, I sleep like a rock." He paused. "Oh, wait, you're in 210, right?" "Yeah." That was Chen's room, before he vanished. Tom lowered his voice. "People said he was acting weird before he disappeared, talking about noises. Not sleeping, then poof, gone." I went to the library and dug through newspaper archives, found more about Chen. Coworkers said he'd become paranoid in his final weeks. Complained about someone following him, knocking on his door at night. Police dismissed it as mental health issues. The knocking continued. Every night. Sometimes I'd sit with my back against the door, feeling it vibrate with each knock. Sometimes I'd stand at the peephole for hours. The hallway remained empty. One night I decided to film it. Set up my phone camera facing the door at 2:55 a.m. At 3 sour, the knocks came. I checked the footage immediately. The video showed nothing. No movement, no sound. But I heard it, I felt it. The knocks were real. I started keeping a detailed log. Day 15, 3 knocks. 3 a.m. exactly. Temperature drop noticeable. Day 16, 3 knocks. 3 a.m. Cold spot by door, lasted 10 minutes. Day 17, 3 knocks. 3 a.m. Thought I saw shadow under door. Day 18, 3 knocks. 3 a.m. Definite shadow movement. On day 19, something changed. The knocks came at 3 a.m. as usual, but this time they were followed by a voice. Barely a whisper, but clear. "Let me in." I froze. My heart pounded. The voice came again. "Please, let me in." It sounded desperate, afraid, human. I put my hand on the doorknob. It was ice cold. My fingers wouldn't move. "Help me," the voice whispered. I stood there, hand on the knob, for what felt like hours. Eventually, the cold faded. The voice stopped. Morning came. I went to Mr. Harris's office as soon as it opened. "Someone was talking outside my door last night," I said, asking to be let in. He looked up from his desk. No one was in the hallway. I checked the security cameras every morning, then checked them. 3 a.m., room 210. He pulled up the footage. Empty hallway. No movement, no sound. "Look," he said, taking off his glasses. "Maybe this isn't the right place for you. I can refund your deposit." I shook my head. I need to know what happened to Chen. That afternoon, I went to Chen's workplace, modern tech company downtown. I told the receptionist I was a friend trying to help solve his disappearance. His former manager agreed to talk. James was one of our best engineers. Then he started changing, paranoid, jumpy. Said someone was stalking him. Did he mention knocking? At night? She looked surprised. Yes, he was obsessed with it. Said it started right after he moved into that boarding house. Always at the same time. "I am?" "Yeah, how did you know?" "I'm in his old room." She went pale. "Get out of there now." James told me something the day before he disappeared. Said he finally figured it out. The knocking, the voices. Said it wasn't someone trying to get in. "What do you mean?" He said it was someone trying to get out. I went back to the boarding house. Spent hours researching its history. Built in 1910. Dozens of owners. No major incidents reported. But then I found it. 1956 newspaper article. Man dies in boarding house fire. Room 210. Eugene Walsh, 45. Body never recovered. The knocking came again that night. 3 a.m. exactly. 3 knocks. Then the voice. "Let me out." My blood went cold. The voice was different now. Deeper. Older. "Please, I've been trapped so long." The temperature dropped. Frost formed on the window. My breath came out in clouds. "Chen figured it out," the voice said. "He tried to help. Now he's here too." Something scraped against the other side of the door, like nails on wood. "Let us out." Multiple voices now, whispering, pleading, demanding. I grabbed my phone to call 911. No signal. The screen was iced over. The door shuttered. The knob turned slowly. I hadn't locked it. I ran. Threw the door open, sprinted down the hallway. Behind me, voices called out. Footsteps followed. Cold air chased me. I made it to the stairs, took them 3 at a time, burst out onto the street. Ran until my lungs burned. I never went back. Left everything behind. Mr. Harris kept my deposit. I didn't care. The police took my statement but didn't believe me. They never searched the building. Never found Chen. I live across the country now. Different name, different life. But every night at 3 a.m. I wake up. Listen for knocking. Wonder about room 210. About Chen. About all the others. Sometimes I dream about that last night. About the voices. About what I would have seen if I'd stayed. In my dreams, they're still there. Knocking. Waiting. Trapped behind a door that opens both ways. I check the news sometimes. Looking for missing persons reports from that address. There's a new one every few months. The boarding house is still there. Still renting rooms. Still advertising on Craigslist. Room 210 is always available. The knocking continues. Every night. At 3 a.m. But now it's someone else's turn to answer. I'm done being quiet about what happened on Route 23. The cops think I'm crazy. My wife left me. My kids won't talk to me. But I know what I saw. Every detail is burned into my brain like a brand. I need to get this down before I lose my mind completely. It started 3 months ago. I'd taken the night shift supervisor job at the Amazon warehouse in Butler County. The pay was better, and nights meant less traffic on my hour-long commute. Route 23 was the fastest way home, a winding 2-lane road cutting through cornfields and patches of woods. During the day, you'd see tractors and pickup trucks. At 3 a.m., it was just me and the occasional semi. The first time I saw him was 2 weeks into the job. I'd settled into the routine by then, clock out at 2:30 a.m., grab coffee from the break room, and hit the road by 2:45. The drive was always the same, past the 24-hour gas station, 20 minutes of farmland. The old Fisher barn, then home. That night was clear and cold. Early October in Ohio means frost on the windshield, and your breath making clouds in the air. I had the heat on full blast, and was listening to some late-night talk radio show about conspiracy theories. The host was interviewing some guy who claimed he'd been abducted by aliens. I rounded the curve past Miller's farm when my headlights caught something at the edge of the road. A man, just walking. He wore dark clothes, maybe a coat or jacket, something long. He was moving slowly along the shoulder, head down. I didn't think much of it at first. People break down sometimes, even at that hour. But something made me slow down as I passed him. Maybe it was the way he was walking, stiff, mechanical. Or maybe it was because he didn't look up or react to my headlights at all. I watched him in my rear-view mirror until he disappeared in the darkness. By the time I got home, I'd forgotten about it. The next night was the same route, same time, and there he was again. Same spot, same slow walk, same dark clothes. This time, I really noticed him. He was tall, maybe 6'2" or 6'3". The coat was black and went down past his knees. His head was bowed so low I couldn't see his face. His arms hung straight down at his sides, not swinging naturally like someone walking normally. I slowed down more this time. The radio cut to static as I passed him. The temperature in my car dropped so fast the windows fogged up. I hit the gas and didn't look back. The third night, I was ready. I kept my eyes on that stretch of road, hands tight on the wheel. Part of me hoped he wouldn't be there. Part of me needed to know I wasn't imagining things. Sure enough, there he was. Same spot, same walk, same everything. I pulled over about 50 yards ahead of him and put on my hazards. My hands were shaking as I watched him in the side mirror. He kept walking that same slow pace, getting closer and closer to my car. "Hey," I called out the window. "You need help?" No response. He just kept walking. I got out of the car. The cold hit me like a slap. My breath came out in white clouds under the orange glow of my hazard lights. "Sir, are you okay?" He was about 20 feet away now, still walking, still looking down. "Look, I can give you a ride if you need one. It's freezing out here." 10 feet away, I could hear his footsteps now. They sounded wet like someone walking in soaked shoes. 5 feet. I took a step back. Something was wrong. Very wrong. His feet were bare, pale white, and with each step, they left dark, wet prints on the asphalt. "Jesus Christ," I whispered. He stopped. Slowly, so slowly, his head began to lift. I ran. I didn't look back. I threw myself into the driver's seat and slammed the gas pedal to the floor. The tires squealed on the frost-covered road as I fishtailed away. When I got home, I sat in my driveway for an hour, shaking. I called in sick the next day, and the next. When I finally went back to work, I took the long way home, an extra 45 minutes of driving just to avoid that stretch of Route 23. But I couldn't stop thinking about it. About him. Those wet footprints. What would I have seen if his face had finished turning toward me? After 2 weeks of the long route, I convinced myself I was being stupid. Gas prices were killing me. I was losing sleep. It was probably just some local drunk who walked that road sometimes. The footprints? A trick of the light. The temperature drop? Bad thermostat in my car. So I took Route 23 again. He was there. This time I was determined to face it, to prove to myself it was nothing. I pulled over again, but stayed in my car. Left the engine running, high beams on. He walked past my car. The radio died. The engine sputtered and stalled. The temperature plummeted so fast frost formed on the inside of my windshield. I sat perfectly still, hands clenched on the wheel, as he passed by my driver's side window. I made myself look. His coat wasn't a coat at all. It was like a hole in the world, darker than the darkness around it. His skin, what I could see of his hands and neck, was the color of old bones. Water dripped constantly from his clothes, his hands, his feet, leaving a trail of dark spots on the road that vanished moments later. He stopped beside my window. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. My heart was pounding so hard it hurt. He turned his head. I saw his face. God help me, I saw his face. It was my face, but wrong, bloated, blue-tinged. The face of a drowning victim, eyes milky white and lips pulled back in a permanent grimace. Water trickled from the corners of his mouth, his nose, his eyes. I screamed. The sound seemed to trigger something. He flickered like a bad TV signal and vanished. Just gone. All that was left was a single wet footprint on the asphalt beside my car. I sat there until dawn, engine dead, shivering in the cold. When the sun finally rose, I took pictures of the footprint with my phone. It was still there, still wet, hours later. I measured it. Size 11. My size. That was 2 months ago. I quit my job the next day. Tried to tell the police, but they just wrote it off as stress or fatigue or someone playing pranks. I showed them the pictures, but they said they just looked like water spots on the road. My wife thought I was having a breakdown. Maybe I am. She took the kids to her sister's place last week. Said she needed time to think. I've done research. Talked to locals. Turns out there was an accident on that stretch of road 15 years ago. A man drove his car into Miller's Pond during a rainstorm. They found his body 3 days later. He was wearing a long black coat, size 11 shoes. I drive past Miller's Pond every day now. Park there sometimes. The water is dark and still. Sometimes I think I see something moving under the surface, something walking, waiting. I know what you're thinking, that I'm crazy, that I need help. Maybe you're right. But if you're ever driving Route 23 in Butler County, Ohio around 3 a.m. and you see a man walking, don't stop. Don't get out of your car. And whatever you do, don't look at his face, because he'll show you how you die. I know what's waiting for me now. I see it every time I close my eyes. That pond, that cold, dark water, my face bloated and blue, walking that endless road. It's only a matter of time. Last night I found wet footprints leading up to my front door. Size 11. I wish I'd never helped Mike clean out that antique store. The doll sits on my dresser right now. It's staring at me. I know what you're thinking. It's just a doll. But I swear its head wasn't turned this way when I left for work this morning. Let me start from the beginning. 3 weeks ago, Mike called asking for help clearing out his uncle's antique store. His uncle had died, leaving him to deal with 40 years' worth of collected junk. I had nothing better to do on a Saturday, so I agreed. The store sat in an old brick building downtown, paint peeled from the wooden doorframe. The windows were so grimy you could barely see the dusty displays inside. A brass bell jangled when we walked in. The smell hit me first, musty and stale, like old books mixed with mothballs. "Thanks for helping, Dan," Mike said, handing me a pair of work gloves. "This place is a mess. Uncle Ted was a hoarder. We need to sort what's valuable from what's trash." Dust floated in the sunlight streaming through the dirty windows. Shelves crammed with trinkets lined the walls. Glass cases held jewelry, coins, and smaller items. Furniture was stacked randomly, chairs on tables, dressers blocking aisles. We started in the back room. I lifted boxes while Mike checked inventory lists. Most stuff was worthless. Broken toys, incomplete chess sets, damaged picture frames. Then I found the doll. It sat on a high shelf behind some old books, about 12 inches tall, made of porcelain. Its face was hand-painted, pale skin, rosy cheeks, deep blue eyes. The clothes looked handmade, a blue velvet dress with white lace trim, tiny leather boots. Something about it caught my attention. "Hey, Mike, what about this?" I held up the doll. He barely glanced at it. Probably worth something to collectors. Add it to the keep pile. But I kept looking at it. The craftsmanship was incredible. Every detail was perfect. The tiny stitches in the dress, the delicate fingers, the glossy brown hair. The face had personality. It wasn't the blank stare of a typical doll. "How much you want for it?" I asked. Mike shrugged. "Take it. Consider it payment for helping." I should have left it there, but I wrapped it in newspaper and took it home, set it on my dresser. That's when things got weird. The first night I dreamed I was trapped in a small dark space. The air was thick and stale. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. When I woke up gasping, sweat soaked my sheets. I got ready for work, trying to shake off the nightmare. As I grabbed my keys, something felt off. The doll looked different. I could have sworn it faced the window last night, but now it faced my bed. I told myself I was being paranoid. That night, the dream came again. This time I was in an old room. Dusty shelves towered over me. Giant shapes loomed in the shadows. Everything was huge, like I'd shrunk. Heavy footsteps approached. I tried to run, but my legs wouldn't move. I woke up with my heart pounding. The doll had moved again, just slightly, head tilted down instead of straight ahead. I examined it closely. The face that seemed so charming before now looked sinister. The blue eyes held a hungry gleam. The small smile seemed to mock me. "This is stupid," I said out loud. "It's just a doll." I went to work, couldn't focus, kept thinking about those eyes. When I got home, the doll had definitely moved. It sat closer to the edge of the dresser, one arm slightly raised. I took photos with my phone to prove I wasn't crazy. Compared them each morning. Small changes showed up. The head turned a few degrees, an arm lowered. The dress ruffled differently. The dreams got worse. I was in a box, being carried. Rough hands lifted me out. Strange faces peered down. I tried to move, to speak. Nothing worked. I could only watch as I was placed on a shelf, posed like a toy. Because I was a toy. A doll. Trapped. I started sleeping on the couch. The dreams followed. Every morning I checked the photos. Every morning the doll had shifted position, sometimes just slightly, sometimes dramatically. One morning I found it on the floor, face down. Another time it sat on my pillow. I'd wake up to find it in different rooms, the kitchen counter, the living room bookshelf, the bathroom sink. I tried to throw it away. Drove to a dumpster across town. Tossed it in. Felt better. Until I got home and found it back on the dresser. Dressed dirty but intact. I took it to a secondhand store. Left it there. Next morning, back on the dresser. Tried burying it in the woods. Came home covered in dirt. Broke it with a hammer. Woke up to find it perfect again, sitting closer to my bed. The dreams got more intense. I lived entire lifetimes trapped in the doll. Decades of watching, unable to move or speak. Passed from owner to owner, locked in display cases, stored in dark attics, always conscious, always screaming inside. I stopped sleeping, drank coffee all day, took caffeine pills, but exhaustion won. I'd drift off and snap awake to find the doll closer. Always closer. Last night was the worst. In the dream, I was the doll again. But this time I saw myself sleeping. Watched my own body twitch and mutter. Felt the urge to reach out, to touch my face, to switch places. I jolted awake. The doll sat on my chest, face inches from mine. Its cold porcelain hand pressed against my cheek. I screamed, knocked it off, ran out of the bedroom, slept in my car. Now I'm sitting at my desk at work, trying to think. The doll is still in my house, waiting. I can feel it. My hands shake as I type this. Need to document what's happening while I still can. While I'm still me. Because the dreams are bleeding into reality. This morning I caught my reflection. My skin looked paler, smoother, almost like porcelain. My joints feel stiff. Hard to move my fingers. The doll is changing too. Last time I saw it, the face looked more human. The blue eyes had depth. The skin had texture. It's waiting for me. I know what it wants. The switch has already started. I don't want to go home, but I have to. Have to face it. Maybe I can break the cycle. Destroy it completely. Burn it. Dissolve it in acid. But I've tried before. It always comes back. I check my phone. New text from Mike. Hey, found some papers about that doll. Previous owner disappeared in 1967. Police found his apartment empty except for a porcelain doll on the dresser. Looks just like you. My fingers tingle. Skin feels tight. I look at my hands. The knuckles are smooth, shiny. I have to go home now. The doll is calling. Soon I'll be free. Free to sit on the dresser, free to wait. Someone will find me. Someone will take me home. And the cycle will start again. But I won't be trapped anymore. I'll be the one doing the trapping. I feel the change spreading. My movements are jerky, mechanical. The doll is winning. Soon I'll be porcelain. Soon I'll be free. Soon I'll be... The first laugh came at 2:47 a.m. I know because I checked my phone the moment I heard it. A high-pitched giggle, crystal clear, from the basement below my bedroom. My new house, my new basement, my locked basement. I live alone. But let me back up. This started 6 hours earlier, when I was organizing the basement storage room I'd been putting off since moving in 3 weeks ago. The previous owners left behind some junk, and my realtor said I could trash it all. Standard stuff. Old paint cans, broken garden tools, a rusty bike frame. I hauled most of it to the curb that afternoon. Then I found the box. It was shoved behind a stack of moldy cardboard, a plain brown shoebox with no markings, the kind you'd get from a department store. When I picked it up, something shifted inside. The lid was sealed with yellowed masking tape that crumbled when I pulled it. Photos. Dozens of them. All black and white, or that faded sepia color old pictures get. They showed a family, mom, dad, 3 kids. The edges were rough, like someone had torn them out of albums. Some had dates scribbled on the back in faded blue ink. 1963, 1964, 1965. The first photo showed them all posed on front steps. Their front steps. These front steps. My front steps. The dad wore thick glasses and a crew cut. The mom had one of those fancy 60s hairdos with the flipped ends. The kids, 2 boys and a girl, wore Sunday clothes and forced smiles. I flipped through more. Birthday parties, Christmas mornings, summer backyard barbecues, normal family stuff. But something felt off. In every single photo, they stood in exactly the same positions. Dad on the left, mom on the right, kids in size order in the middle. Even in casual shots, even when they were obviously doing different things, they maintained those exact positions and their expressions. The more I looked, the more wrong they seemed. Those weren't just forced photo smiles. Their faces were frozen, stiff, like taxidermy animals posed to look alive. The last photo was different. They stood in the basement, this basement, in their usual positions. But the image was blurry, like whoever took it was shaking. And their faces were just smears of white, like someone had taken an eraser to them. I checked the back. No date. Just 5 words in different handwriting. Don't let them hear you. I should have thrown the box away, should have burned it. Instead, I put it back exactly where I found it and finished cleaning. By 8 p.m., the basement looked decent. I locked up, ordered pizza, watched some Netflix. Normal night. Until 2:47 a.m. The giggle jolted me awake, high-pitched like a little girl. It echoed up through the heating vent beside my bed. I lay there, holding my breath, straining to hear more. Nothing. Just a dream. Had to be. I rolled over, pulled the blanket up. Another laugh. A deeper one this time. A man's laugh. Then a woman's voice, too quiet to make out words. I sat up, heart pounding. The sounds were definitely coming from the basement. My locked basement. My phone showed 3 text messages from my buddy Mike about our weekend plans. I ignored them and opened the flashlight app instead. The wooden floor creaked under my feet as I got up. More laughter floated up through the vent. All 3 voices now, plus the kids. A family having fun. At 3 a.m., in my locked basement. I pulled on jeans and grabbed the baseball bat from my closet. The one I bought after moving in alone, just in case. My hands shook as I checked the phone's battery. 92%. Enough. The hallway was darker than usual. Moonlight usually came through the window at the end, but clouds covered everything tonight. My flashlight beam bounced off the walls as I crept toward the basement door. The laughter got louder with each step. I could hear words now. Show it again, Daddy. One more time. Everybody ready? Normal words. Happy words. But wrong. So wrong at this hour. In this place. I reached the basement door, tested the knob. Still locked. The key hung on its hook beside the frame, right where I'd left it. The voices continued below. I stood there, bat in one hand, phone in the other, trying to think. Call the cops? They'd take forever to arrive. Break down the door? What if someone really had broken in? A new sound cut through the laughter. Music, tinny and distant, like from an old record player. I recognized the tune. Happy Birthday. My mouth went dry. One of the photos had shown a birthday party. The little girl in a party dress, cake with 6 candles, that same record player in the background. The key felt ice cold as I lifted it off the hook. The lock clicked open with a sound like breaking glass. I nudged the door with my foot. It swung inward on silent hinges. The voices and music grew louder, but they had a strange echo now, like they were coming from underwater. My flashlight beam found the steps. Solid wood, each one a potential creaking betrayal. I tested the first with my toe. Silent. Step by step I descended. The temperature dropped with each foot lower. By the 3rd step, I could see my breath. The voices seemed to come from everywhere now. The family talked and laughed, the record player crackled, but I couldn't pin down the source. The sound bounced off the concrete walls, disorienting me. Halfway down, my phone flickered. The battery had been at 92%. Now it showed 17%. As I watched, it dropped to 16%, then 15%. I reached the bottom step. The basement stretched out before me, shapes looming in the dimming flashlight beam. Old shelves, boxes, the water heater's hulking shadow. 14% battery. The shoebox sat exactly where I'd left it, on a shelf near the far wall. But something was different. The lid was off. 13%. The music warped, slowing down like a dying record player, the voices distorted with it, dropping to impossible registers. They didn't sound happy anymore. 12%. Movement caught my eye. A shadow darker than the rest, person-shaped, slid behind the water heater. 11%. Another shadow, smaller, darted between boxes. 10%. The temperature plummeted. Frost crackled across the concrete floor, spreading from where I stood. 9%. My flashlight dimmed further, barely piercing the darkness now. The shadows moved faster, circling, drawing closer. 8%. A child's laugh, right behind me. I spun around. Nothing. 7%. Show it again, Daddy. The voice came from everywhere and nowhere. 6%. The shoebox fell. Photos scattered across the frost-covered floor. 5%. They were different now. In every image, the family stared directly at the camera. At me, 4%. Their faces weren't blank anymore. Their mouths stretched too wide, filled with too many teeth. 3%. My flashlight caught a reflection in the corner. 5 pairs of eyes, glowing like animals in the dark. 2%. They stood in their usual positions. Dad left, Mom right, kids in the middle, just like the photos. 1%. Don't let them hear you. My phone died. The darkness rushed in, cold air wrapped around me like hands, and they began to move. I don't remember running up the stairs. Don't remember slamming the door, turning the key, sliding down the wall with my heart trying to punch through my ribs. I sat there until dawn seeped through the windows, until birds started chirping and cars began passing outside. Normal sounds, day sounds. When I finally stood on shaking legs, I saw frost under the door. It melted as I watched, leaving 5 puddles. 2 large, 3 small. I called a realtor that morning. The house is on the market now. I sleep at a hotel, coming back only to show the place to potential buyers. Nice family looked at it yesterday. Parents, 3 kids. They loved the basement storage space. Said it was perfect for their needs. I tried to warn them. Tried to say something about the photos, the voices, the shadows that move wrong. But every time I start to speak, I hear those words. Don't let them hear you. So I stay quiet, sign the papers, hand over the keys, and try not to think about the shoebox still sitting on that shelf, waiting for the next family to find it. The last showing is tomorrow. After that, it's not my problem anymore. Let the new owners deal with what lives in their basement. Just remember, if you're ever organizing a new storage space and find an old box of photos, leave it where it is. Don't look too closely at the faces. Don't read what's written on the back. And if you hear laughter in the night, keep your door locked. Some basements are better left alone. The scratching started on my first night in the house. Just a light scraping against the bedroom window. I told myself it was tree branches, but there weren't any trees near that side of the house. That was my first clue something was wrong with 42 Maple Street, but I ignored it. I needed this place, and the rent was cheap, and I was desperate after my divorce. I should have listened to my gut. I found the diary 3 days after moving in. The floorboard in the living room caught my sock. When I bent down to check it, the wood felt loose. I pried it up with my fingers, sending dust everywhere. The leather-bound book sat in a small cavity, wrapped in a plastic bag. The pages were yellowed, but intact. The handwriting was neat, almost too perfect. It belonged to someone named Thomas Warren. The first entry was dated exactly 1 year ago, October 15th, 2023. Something watches me from the backyard. I see it when I'm doing dishes. A dark shape always just at the edge of the window. When I turn to look directly, it's gone. I'm not crazy. I know what I see. I read that entry 3 times. My hands were shaking when I looked up at my own kitchen window. It was past sunset, and all I could see was my reflection in the dark glass. But something made me walk over and close the blinds. The diary entries got worse. Thomas wrote about scratching sounds at night, cold spots in the hallway, the feeling of being watched while he slept, items moving when he wasn't looking. At first, I told myself it was the ramblings of a disturbed mind. But then things started happening to me too. It began with small things. I'd leave my coffee mug on the kitchen counter only to find it in the sink. I'd wake up to all the cabinet doors standing open. The shower would turn on by itself while I was reading in bed. I started taking photos of how I left rooms before going to sleep, just to prove to myself I wasn't imagining things. One entry from Thomas caught my attention. December 3rd, 2023. I saw it clearly tonight. I was up late working, and movement caught my eye. A figure stood in my bedroom doorway. Tall, too tall. Its head nearly touched the frame. It was dark, but not like a shadow, more like a hole in the air. When I blinked, it was gone. But I smell it sometimes now, like wet earth and copper. 3 days after reading that entry, I saw it too. I was walking to the bathroom at 3 a.m. The hallway was dark, except for the nightlight I'd started leaving plugged in. The figure stood at the end of the hall, exactly as Thomas described. Impossibly tall, black as a starless night. My body went cold. I couldn't move. It felt like hours, but it must have been only seconds. When I finally managed to hit the light switch, the hallway was empty. I started sleeping with the lights on after that. I read more of the diary, January 15th, 2024. It's getting closer. Every night it's closer to my bed. I wake up and it's standing in the corner, then by the dresser, then at the foot of my bed. I can feel it watching, waiting. The real estate agent won't return my calls. I found out the previous tenant disappeared, just stopped showing up to work one day, left everything behind. I should leave, but something keeps me here. Like it's holding me somehow. My hands were sweating as I read, because I'd been experiencing the same progression. Each night, the figure appeared closer to where I slept. I started propping a chair against my bedroom door, but it didn't matter. It got in anyway. I researched the house's history. Thomas Warren had vanished 4 months ago. The police report said he left his car in the driveway, his wallet on the kitchen counter. No signs of struggle. No body ever found. Before him, another tenant disappeared in 2022, and another in 2019. The real estate company had been sued twice, but claimed no knowledge of any issues with the property. The diary's final entry was dated March 23rd, 2024. It's standing over me as I write this. I can feel its cold breath. The scratching is constant now, not just at the windows, in the walls, under the floor, in my head. I understand now. It needs to be fed. The house needs to be fed. That's why they chose me. That's why they'll choose someone else after. If you're reading this, get out. Get out before the entry ended there. A long ink line trailed off the page, like his hand had been dragged away. I started planning my escape that night. I packed a bag, made arrangements to stay with my brother. But something always stopped me from leaving. I'd reach for my car keys and suddenly feel dizzy. Try to walk out the front door, only to find myself back in the bedroom with no memory of turning around. The house didn't want me to leave. The scratching got louder. Not just at night now, all day, every day. I could hear it in the walls while I showered, in the ceiling while I ate, under the floor while I paced. Sometimes it sounded like whispers, sometimes like laughter. I started losing time. I'd look at the clock and it would be 2 p.m., then suddenly it would be midnight. I'd find scratches on my arms that I didn't remember getting. My phone would show photos I didn't remember taking, most of them just black frames, but some showing glimpses of that tall figure in mirrors, in windows, in doorways. Last night, I woke up in the crawl space under the house. My flashlight showed other things under there: old clothes, watches, wallets, personal effects from other tenants. The diary wasn't the only thing hidden under floorboards. The figure stands in my doorway as I write this. It's closer than ever. The scratching is deafening. I know now why Thomas's diary was left for me to find. The house wants me to continue the record, to leave evidence for the next tenant, to keep the cycle going. My hand is shaking so badly I can barely write. The smell of wet earth and copper fills my nose. It's reaching for me now. Its hand is so long, so black, like a tear in reality. I should run, but my legs won't move. I should scream, but my throat is closed. All I can do is write these last words. If you're reading this, get out. The house doesn't just want tenants. It wants sacrifices. It wants... The rest of the pages are blank. The black Chevrolet started following me 3 weeks ago. Same car, same time, same stretch of road between my office and home. At first, I thought it was just another commuter with a similar schedule. But no one takes the exact same route, at the exact same distance every single day. And no one disappears into thin air at the same curve night after night. I work late at the accounting firm downtown. The drive home takes 40 minutes on good days, closer to an hour when traffic's bad. Most people are already home by the time I leave the office parking garage at 8 p.m. The streets are quieter then, emptier. You notice things more when there are fewer cars around. The first time I spotted the Chevy, I barely registered it. Just another set of headlights in my rearview mirror as I merged onto Highland Avenue. But something made me look twice. Maybe it was how the car kept pace with mine, maintaining the same precise distance no matter how I varied my speed. 3 car lengths back, no more, no less. The driver stayed in shadow, impossible to make out through the tinted windows. The car itself was unremarkable. An older model Impala, black paint slightly faded, no distinguishing features except a small dent in the rear bumper. But something about it felt wrong. The way it moved, maybe. Too smooth, too controlled, like it was gliding rather than driving. That first night I watched it follow me all the way to Oakwood Curve, that sharp bend in the road just before my neighborhood. The Chevy was there one moment, headlights steady in my mirror. Then I rounded the curve, and when I looked again, the road behind me was empty. I figured I must have missed seeing it turn off somewhere. There are a few side streets along that stretch, but the next night the same thing happened. And the next. And the next. Always the same car, always disappearing at the same spot. I started taking different routes home. Surface streets instead of the highway, random turns, doubling back. The Chevy always found me within minutes of leaving the office, always kept that same distance, always vanished at Oakwood Curve. I began documenting everything. Date, time, route taken. I noted the weather, traffic conditions, any possible places the car could turn off. Nothing explained how it could disappear so completely, so quickly, night after night. The lack of sleep started getting to me. I'd lie awake for hours, replaying each encounter in my mind, searching for some detail I might have missed. Dark circles formed under my eyes. My hands shook slightly when I gripped the steering wheel. Coworkers asked if I was feeling okay. I stopped answering my phone when my mother called, not trusting myself to hide the strain in my voice. Tonight that changes. I've mapped out every inch of Oakwood Curve. There are no side streets, no driveways, nowhere for a car to go. The shoulder is too narrow for parking. The guardrail runs unbroken along the outer edge. Whatever happens when that Chevy reaches the curve, I'm going to find out. I left work at the usual time, hands sweating as I pulled out of the garage. The Chevy appeared right on schedule, sliding into position behind me. My heart pounded against my ribs as I drove, checking the mirror every few seconds to make sure it was still there. When I reached Oakwood Curve, instead of continuing through, I pulled onto the narrow shoulder. Gravel crunched under my tires as I brought the car to a stop. The Chevy's headlights filled my mirror, steady and bright. I took a deep breath, grabbed the flashlight from my glove compartment, and stepped out into the cool night air. The Chevy's engine idled, a low rumble in the darkness. I waited for the driver's door to open, for someone to step out and explain what the hell was going on. Nothing happened. The car just sat there, headlights boring into me. My legs felt unsteady as I walked toward it. The beam of my flashlight revealed the familiar dented bumper, the faded paint. But something was different. The windows weren't just tinted. They were completely black, like holes cut in reality. No reflection, no hint of movement inside. I stopped a few feet from the driver's side door. Sweat trickled down my back despite the chill. "Who are you?" My voice came out hoarse. "What do you want?" No response, just the steady idle of the engine. I reached for the door handle. My fingers touched cold metal. I started to pull. The engine revved suddenly, startling me backward. The Chevy's tires spun, kicking up gravel. Before I could react, it shot forward, passing my parked car and racing toward the curve. I sprinted back to my car, fumbling with the keys. By the time I got the engine started, the Chevy's taillights were disappearing around the bend. I accelerated hard, taking the curve faster than I should have. My tires squealed in protest. The road ahead was empty. I slammed on the brakes, breathing hard. It was impossible. I'd seen the car go this way seconds ago. There was nowhere it could have gone. I jumped out, sweeping my flashlight across the pavement, the guardrail, the dense trees beyond. Nothing. That's when I noticed the smell. Burning rubber, yes, from my tires, but something else too. A sharp, metallic odor that made my nose sting. The air felt wrong somehow, heavy and static charged, like just before a thunderstorm. My flashlight beam caught something on the road. Dark streaks that could have been tire marks, but they didn't look quite right. They started abruptly in the middle of the curve and ended just as suddenly about 20 feet later. I knelt down to examine them closer. The marks weren't black like normal tire rubber. They had an oily rainbow sheen, like a gasoline puddle in the sun. When I touched one, my fingers came away clean. The surface felt cold, much colder than the surrounding pavement. A car approached from behind, headlights sweeping across me. I quickly got up and returned to my vehicle, not wanting to explain why I was crouched in the middle of the road at night. As I drove the rest of the way home, my mind raced. The next day at work, I could barely focus. I spent hours researching missing persons cases in the area, unexplained phenomena, anything that might give me a clue about the phantom Chevy. I found nothing concrete, just vague forum posts about strange lights and urban legends about haunted stretches of road. That evening, I loaded my car with equipment. Cameras, including an old GoPro I'd borrowed from my nephew, a handheld GPS unit, my phone fully charged and ready to record. Whatever happened, I'd have evidence. The Chevy appeared right on schedule. I felt calmer this time, more prepared. I narrated everything into my phone as I drove, describing the car's position, its movements, any small detail that seemed relevant. Approaching Oakwood Curve, I pulled over in the same spot as before. The cameras were rolling. The GPS showed my exact position. I stepped out of the car. The Chevy stopped behind me just like last night. Same position, same idle rumble. This time, I didn't approach it. Instead, I stood by my car and watched. Minutes passed. The air grew colder. My breath fogged in front of my face. Without warning, the Chevy's engine roared to life. But instead of racing forward like before, it began to change. The black paint seemed to ripple and flow like liquid. The shape of the car distorted, stretching and compressing in ways that hurt my eyes to look at. I raised my phone to record, hands shaking. Through the screen, I saw something impossible. Where the Chevy's windows had been, there was now only darkness. Not the reflectionless black from before, but true darkness, like looking into a void. The darkness began to spread, consuming the car from the inside out. The engine sound changed, becoming deeper, resonating in my chest. The air crackled with electricity. My phone's screen went black, then switched off completely. I could feel the hair on my arms standing up. The Chevy, what was left of it, lurched forward. As it passed me, I caught a glimpse through what had been the passenger window. Instead of car seats and interior, I saw something else, a space that couldn't exist, stretching away into impossible geometries, and movement within that space, shapes that my mind couldn't process. I stumbled backward, hitting my car. The transformed Chevy accelerated toward the curve, the darkness around it seeming to bend and distort the very air. Just before it reached the bend, reality itself appeared to fold. The car passed through that fold and vanished, taking the anomaly with it. The night snapped back to normal. My phone powered back on. The GPS unit was dead, its screen cracked. The cameras had captured nothing. Their memory cards were completely erased. I slid down to sit on the gravel, my legs too weak to hold me. The ordinary sounds of the night returned. Distant traffic, wind in the trees, crickets chirping. But I could still smell that metallic odor, still feel the residual static charge in the air. After that night, I never saw the black Chevy again. I changed jobs to avoid that route, moved to a different part of the city, tried to convince myself it had been stress, lack of sleep, some kind of breakdown. But sometimes, driving late at night, I'll catch a glimpse of something in my rearview mirror. A familiar shape, maintaining that precise 3-car distance. And I'll take the next turn and the next and the next until I'm sure nothing is following me. I've never gone back to Oakwood Curve. I don't want to know if those strange tire marks are still there. Don't want to find out what might happen if that fold in reality opens again. And this time, something comes through from the other side. But I keep the cameras in my car, charged and ready. Keep my phone close at hand, because I know what I saw that night. Know that somewhere out there, a black Chevrolet is still driving the dark roads following someone else home. And maybe next time I'll get the proof I need to make others believe. For now, I avoid driving at night when I can. When I have to, I keep checking my mirror, counting the cars behind me. 1, 2, 3, making sure none of them maintain that perfect distance. Making sure none of them are a black Chevy with a small dent in the rear bumper. Because once you've seen reality fold, you can never unsee it. You can never stop wondering what else might be out there, riding the dark roads, following someone home. I shouldn't have bought that damn book. That's what I keep telling myself as I sit here in my dark kitchen at 3 a.m., staring at the word death scratched into my wooden table. I didn't write it. I live alone. But I know exactly where it came from. That leather-bound book I picked up last Tuesday at Morgan's Rare Books. It started with a lunch break and too much time to kill. I work as an accountant downtown, and after wolfing down my sandwich, I had 40 minutes before my next meeting. Morgan's was just around the corner. I'd passed it 100 times but never went in. The bell above the door jingled when I walked in. Dust floated in the sunlight coming through the dirty windows. The place smelled like old paper and leather. Shelves stretched from floor to ceiling, packed with used books of every size. A fat orange cat slept on the counter next to an ancient cash register. "Can I help you?" The voice came from behind a stack of books. A tiny old woman emerged, her gray hair in a messy bun. Her name tag read, "Margaret." "Just browsing," I said. She nodded and went back to sorting books. I wandered the aisles, running my fingers along the spines. Most were ordinary paperbacks, but in the back corner I found the rare book section. Glass cases held first editions and leather-bound volumes. One book caught my eye. It sat alone on the bottom shelf, no case around it. The binding was dark brown leather, cracked with age. No title on the spine. I picked it up. The cover was blank too, just smooth leather. It felt warm in my hands, like it had been sitting in sunlight, but this corner was dark. I opened it. The pages were yellowed but intact. Handwritten text filled each page in neat black ink, some kind of journal or diary. But scattered throughout were notes in red ink, cramped writing in the margins and between lines. Words and phrases circled or underlined in that same red ink. Interesting choice. Margaret stood behind me. I jumped. "What is it?" I asked. "Personal journal from the 1800s. Previous owner made quite a few annotations." She adjusted her glasses. $50. It was more than I'd planned to spend, but something about the book pulled at me. I handed over my credit card. Back at my office, I slipped the book into my briefcase. That night at home, I settled into my reading chair and opened it again. The black ink told a mundane story, daily life in 1860s Boston, but the red notes were strange. Single words circled. Shadow. Watching. Beneath. Follow. Fragments of sentences. They come at night and don't look too long. I read for hours. My eyes grew heavy around midnight. I put the book on my nightstand and went to sleep. The next morning I found the first word. Shadow, written in chalk on my bathroom mirror. The handwriting matched the red notes exactly. I wiped it off with a tissue. My hand shook. I told myself I must have written it myself. Maybe I was sleepwalking, but I didn't own any chalk. At work, I couldn't focus. I kept thinking about the book, the red notes, that word on my mirror. When I got home, I found another one. Watching carved into the wood of my front door. On the inside, I ran my fingers over the letters. They were deep, like someone had taken a knife to the wood, but I hadn't heard anything. No one had broken in. All my locks were still secure. That night I pulled the book out again. I studied the red notes more carefully. They seemed random at first, but patterns emerged. The same words repeated. They appeared in clusters, like the writer was building to something. I fell asleep reading again. Woke up at 2 a.m. to get water. In my kitchen, scratched into the table. Beneath, my heart pounded. The scratches were fresh, the wood still light-colored where it had been carved. The house was silent. I checked every room, every closet, under every bed. Nothing. I didn't sleep the rest of that night. Sat in my living room with all the lights on, jumping at every creak and settling sound the house made. When dawn came, I called in sick to work. I spent the morning going through the book page by page. The black ink journal entries grew darker as they went on. The writer described strange sounds in his house, objects moving on their own, words appearing in impossible places. The red notes got more frantic too, whole passages underlined. They're coming through. The words are their way in. Once you see them, they see you. Around noon, my phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. Follow. I blocked the number. 10 seconds later, another text. Different number. Follow. I turned my phone off, grabbed my laptop to research the book. But my screen showed only one word, over and over, filling the display. Follow, 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 follow. I slammed the laptop shut. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. In the kitchen, I poured a shot of whiskey, drank it fast, poured another. The alcohol helped steady my nerves. I had to get rid of the book. I grabbed it off the coffee table, got in my car, and drove back to Morgan's. The store was dark. Sign in the window. Closed for renovations. Through the dusty glass, I saw empty shelves. No books, no cat, no sign of Margaret. I asked the coffee shop next door how long Morgan's had been closed. Morgan's? The barista looked confused. That space has been empty for years. Old bookstore went out of business in the 90s. I drove home fast, hands tight on the wheel. The book sat in my passenger seat. At red lights, I could swear I saw the leather binding pulse, like something breathing. Back home, I tried burning it in my fireplace. The flames wouldn't catch. The pages wouldn't even scorch. I tried ripping it apart. The leather and paper felt like steel. That night, the words were everywhere. Shadow in toothpaste on my bathroom counter. Watching in coffee grounds scattered across my kitchen floor. Beneath spelled out in my own shirts, pulled from their hangers and arranged on my bedroom floor. I sat in my reading chair, holding the book. The red notes seemed to move on the page, shifting when I wasn't looking directly at them. New ones appeared as I watched. We're here now. You let us in. No way back. Something scratched inside my walls. Footsteps crossed my ceiling. Shadows moved in my peripheral vision. I haven't slept in 3 days. The words keep coming. They're on every surface now. My skin itches where they've started appearing there too, rising like welts. The book sits open on my coffee table. I can't close it anymore. The pages turn on their own. The red notes are writing themselves, spreading across every empty space. I hear them whispering at night, voices speaking the words written in red. They're getting closer. The shadows in the corners are solid now, watching me with eyes I can almost see. I'm writing this as a warning. Don't browse in strange bookstores. Don't buy unmarked books. Don't read notes written in red ink. They're coming up the stairs now. The shadows are stretching toward me. The red words crawl across my screen as I type. Found you. My front door just opened. I hear footsteps in the hall, but they don't sound human. The shadows have eyes. They're here. They're... I first saw the necklace 3 weeks ago at the Greenpoint Flea Market in Brooklyn. It sat on a worn velvet display cushion, half buried under costume jewelry and old watches. The pendant caught my eye, a simple black stone set in tarnished silver. $10, the vendor said. I bought it without haggling. That was my first mistake. The shadow appeared that same night. I was brushing my teeth, leaning over the sink. When I looked up, I saw it in the bathroom mirror, a dark shape standing behind my right shoulder. I spun around. Nothing there. Just my toothbrush hitting the tile floor, spattering foam. I blamed it on being tired. Working 60 hours a week at the accounting firm does that to you. Makes you see things. But the next morning, waiting for the subway at Union Square, I saw it again. A human-shaped darkness at the edge of my vision. When I turned my head, it vanished. By the third day, the shadow was everywhere. In store windows, car mirrors, the reflective doors of my office building. Always in the same spot, just behind my right shoulder, slightly taller than me. Never fully visible, but unmistakably there. I stopped looking in mirrors, covered the one in my bathroom with a sheet, but the shadow found other ways to show itself. In the chrome of the coffee maker, the black screen of my turned-off TV, the window of the Thai place where I get lunch. My co-worker started noticing something was wrong. "You feeling okay, Mike?" Sarah from Accounts Payable asked. "You look like you haven't slept in days." She was right. I hadn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I felt it there. Watching, waiting. The necklace hung heavy around my neck. I tried taking it off the first week, but my hands shook so bad I couldn't work the clasp. Last night, things got worse. I was walking home from the subway, past the construction site on Bedford Avenue. The streetlights cast multiple shadows on the plywood barrier. All of them mine, stretching and distorting, except one. One shadow stayed perfectly still, even when I moved. It turned its head to watch me pass. I ran the last 3 blocks home, slammed the door, locked it, double-checked the windows, pulled all the blinds. But in the dark, the shadows are everywhere. I'm writing this now at my kitchen table. The overhead light creates a bright circle around me. Beyond that, darkness fills every corner. My hands won't stop shaking. The necklace feels like it's getting tighter. There's movement in my peripheral vision. The shadow is closer now than it's ever been. I can almost make out features in its face, almost hear it breathing. I need to find that vendor again, need to return the necklace. But the flea market only runs on weekends, and it's 4 more days until Saturday. I don't know if I can last that long. The light above me just flickered, once, twice. The shadow is... That's what the police found on Mike Chen's laptop, according to the official report. They discovered it 3 days after his neighbors reported a strange smell coming from apartment 4B. The apartment was empty, no signs of forced entry or struggle. Just an open Word document and a black stone pendant on a silver chain, sitting on the kitchen table. The necklace was logged into evidence, then disappeared from the precinct lockup 2 days later. The case remains unsolved. Every few months, a similar necklace shows up at flea markets around the city. Always $10. Always a simple black stone in tarnished silver. Always with a shadow lingering just behind the vendor's shoulder, watching, waiting for the next buyer. I know because I was the detective assigned to Chen's case. I've been tracking the necklace ever since, following the trail of missing persons reports, collecting witness statements, building a case file that no one at the department will take seriously. Yesterday I saw the necklace again. Greenpoint Flea Market. Same stall where Chen bought it. $10, the vendor said. I almost bought it, almost reached for my wallet. But then I saw the shadow behind him shift slightly and I walked away. Someone else will buy it. They always do. And the cycle will continue. But it won't be me. I've seen too many case files. Read too many final messages like Chen's. Some mysteries are better left unsolved. Some shadows are better left unwatched. Just remember, if you're ever at a flea market and you see a black stone pendant on a silver chain, walk away. Don't look back. And whatever you do, don't look over your right shoulder, because by then it's already too late. The shadow has chosen you, and it never lets go. The paper wasn't there when I sat down. I know because I checked the seat like I always do. But 2 hours into the overnight train ride from Boston to Chicago, I got up to use the bathroom. When I came back, there it was, a folded piece of white paper on my seat. I picked it up. The paper was warm, like someone had been holding it. The message inside was typed in plain black text. Michael Wheeler, at 3:17 a.m. on October 15th, you will receive a visitor. Your TV will turn on by itself. There will be 3 knocks at your door. Do not answer. Today was October 12th. My hands started shaking. Nobody on this train should know my name. I'm not even supposed to be on this train. I only bought the ticket an hour before departure when my flight got canceled. I looked around the half-empty car. Most passengers were sleeping. An old woman knitted a few rows ahead. A businessman typed on his laptop across the aisle. Nobody was watching me. I crumpled the note and shoved it in my pocket. Probably just some stupid prank. But my heart wouldn't slow down. The rest of the trip passed in a blur of paranoia. I kept looking over my shoulder, studying faces, trying to catch someone watching me. Nobody ever was. I got off in Chicago at 6 a.m., grabbed my suitcase, and took a Uber straight home. By that afternoon, I'd almost convinced myself to forget about it. I had work to focus on anyway. Endless Zoom calls and emails that kept me distracted. But every few hours my hand would drift to my jacket pocket, touching the crumpled paper still there. That night, I pulled it out and smoothed it on my kitchen counter. The words hadn't changed. 3 more days until October 15th. The next 2 days I went about my normal routine, worked from home, ordered delivery, watched Netflix. But I kept the note propped against my coffee maker where I could see it, like keeping an eye on a spider you don't want to lose track of. October 15th arrived cold and rainy. I barely slept the night before, kept jerking awake, checking the time. By evening, my nerves were shot. I'd drunk too much coffee and my hands wouldn't stop trembling. At midnight, I did a full check of my apartment, tested all the locks, closed all the curtains, unplugged the TV, then plugged it back in, unable to decide which was safer. 2 a.m. came and went. I sat in my living room, all the lights on. The note sat on my coffee table. My phone showed 3:12 a.m. The TV clicked on. Just static at first, gray fuzz filling the screen. I hadn't touched the remote. It sat untouched on the table, exactly where I'd left it. 3:15 a.m. The static cleared. A news program appeared, but the sound was muted. The anchor's mouth moved silently. The ticker at the bottom showed gibberish, just random letters scrolling past. 3:16 a.m. My throat was so dry it hurt to swallow. Sweat ran down my back. The news program flickered, turned to static, then back again. Different anchor now, still muted, still moving her lips without sound. 3:17 a.m. 3 loud knocks on my front door. Knock, knock, knock. I stopped breathing. The TV flickered again, now showing what looked like security camera footage. Black and white. Empty hallway. More knocks. Louder this time. Knock, knock, knock. The security footage on TV. I recognized that hallway now. It was my building, my floor, leading to my door. A figure appeared on screen. Tall, walking slowly down the hall toward my apartment. The image quality was terrible, all grainy and distorted. I couldn't make out any details. Knock, knock, knock. The figure on screen reached my door, raised its hand to knock. I muted my phone, turned off all the lights, pressed myself into the corner of my couch, trying not to move, trying not to breathe. Knock, knock, knock. The figure on screen lowered its hand, stood perfectly still, then slowly turned to face the security camera. The TV went black. I heard my doorknob turning, the lock clicking, the door creaking open. Cold air rushed in from the hallway. Heavy footsteps on my floor. The door closed. I couldn't move, couldn't scream. Could only sit there in the dark, listening to the footsteps getting closer. They stopped right behind the couch. I felt breathing on the back of my neck. Then a hand touched my shoulder. I jerked awake with a gasp. Sunlight streamed through my windows. I was still on the couch, exactly where I'd been sitting last night. My phone showed 9:47 a.m. The TV was off. The front door was locked. Everything looked normal. Just a dream. The stress and lack of sleep must have gotten to me. I laughed shakily, rubbing my face. Then I saw it. A new piece of paper on my coffee table right next to the original note. My hands shook as I picked it up. Same plain black text. Michael Wheeler, at 3:17 a.m. on December 24th, you will receive another visitor. This time you must answer the door. I dropped the paper like it burned me. Scrambled to check my phone's camera roll. There had to be evidence, pictures or video from last night. I found a new video I didn't remember taking. Dated 3:17 a.m. My finger hovered over play. The first frame showed my dark living room. The timestamp in the corner confirmed. 3:17 a.m. October 15th. I pressed play, static, then my living room again. Empty couch, TV off. A tall figure walked into frame. I slammed my phone face down on the table. My heart hammered so hard it hurt. December 24th, 2 months away. This time, I had to answer the door. The note said I had to. But what would be waiting on the other side? I picked up both notes. The old one from the train and the new one from this morning. Laid them side by side. Studied every detail, looking for clues I might have missed. The paper was identical. Same weight, same texture. The typing looked the same too, probably from the same printer. No watermarks, no hidden marks or patterns I could find. I got up and paced my apartment. Checked every room, every closet. Looking for... what? More notes? Signs of intrusion? I didn't know. Everything looked normal. Nothing out of place. But that just made it worse somehow. Like the whole thing was mocking me, leaving no evidence, no proof I wasn't just going crazy. I tried to think logically. Someone on that train had to have planted the first note. I could call Amtrak, ask about security footage. But what would I say? Someone left me a creepy note that came true? They'd think I was nuts. I could go to the police. But again, with what evidence? 2 pieces of paper with cryptic messages? The video on my phone that could easily have been faked? No. I had to handle this myself. Figure out what was happening before December 24th. I spent the next week investigating. Called the train company anyway, but they said their security footage only went back 72 hours. Checked my building's security system, but there was mysteriously no footage from October 15th, just static between 3 a.m. and 4 a.m. I installed my own cameras, motion sensors, voice recorders, bought a new TV and threw out the old one, changed all my locks. But the notes stayed on my coffee table. I couldn't bring myself to throw them away. They were my only proof this was real. October turned to November. I barely slept. Jumped at every noise. Kept checking the cameras, the sensors, looking for signs. But nothing unusual ever showed up. My work started suffering. Missed deadlines. Spacing out during meetings. Dark circles under my eyes that makeup couldn't hide. Friends stopped calling after I canceled plans too many times. Couldn't risk being away from my apartment at night. Had to be ready. Had to prepare. December arrived with snow and bitter cold. The holiday decorations going up around the city felt like a countdown. Each twinkling light, each jingling bell. Tick-tock, tick-tock. I took time off work. Told them I was visiting family for the holidays. Instead, I stayed home, studying the notes, reviewing camera footage, making plans. December 23rd. 1 day left. I hadn't slept in 36 hours. Coffee cups littered every surface. 3 laptops set up to monitor different camera feeds. Notebook filled with theories, observations, possibilities. No conclusions, no answers. Just questions piling up like the snow outside. 3 a.m., December 24th. 17 minutes left. All cameras active. Motion sensors armed. Voice recorders running. 3 different phones set to record video. The notes sat on my coffee table, like always. 3:10 a.m. I checked all the locks again. Tested the cameras again. Everything working. 3:15 a.m. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. Sweat soaked through my shirt despite the cold. The TV stayed off. I'd unplugged it completely this time. Removed the cord. 3:16 a.m. I stood in the middle of my living room, watching the door, waiting. The note said I had to answer. Had to open it. 3:17 a.m. Knock, knock, knock. Right on schedule. All the cameras went dead simultaneously. Screens showing nothing but static. Knock, knock, knock. Louder this time. The door rattled in its frame. My feet moved without conscious thought. Step by step toward the door. Knock, knock, knock. I reached for the handle. Cold metal under my fingers. Turn the knob. Pull the door open. Empty hallway. But footsteps behind me. Inside my apartment. I spun around. The figure stood there. Tall. Dark. Features hidden in shadow. It held out a piece of paper. My hand shook as I took it. Same plain black text. Michael Wheeler, you have passed the first test. There will be more. The next note will arrive when you least expect it. You must follow all instructions exactly. Your life depends on it. I looked up. The figure was gone. All the cameras came back online at once. The footage showed nothing, just empty rooms. But the note was still in my hand. Real. Solid. Undeniable. I sank onto my couch, laid the new note next to the others. 3 pieces of paper, 3 messages, 3 visits. And somewhere out there, another note waiting, another test coming. I didn't sleep that night, or the next. Just sat there watching my door, watching the cameras, waiting. The note stayed on my coffee table, growing cold, growing patient, waiting with me for the next message, for the next test, for 3:17 a.m. to come again. I shouldn't have taken that shortcut. That's what started everything. I was driving from Boston to Chicago for a job interview, and Google Maps showed an alternate route that would save me 2 hours. The sun was setting, and I was tired. The GPS led me onto smaller and smaller roads until I lost cell service completely. The rental house wasn't my first choice. After my car broke down on that empty road in western Pennsylvania, I had to walk 3 miles in the dark before finding anything. No streetlights, no houses, nothing but trees and the sound of insects. The temperature dropped to 40 degrees. My phone was dead. My fingers went numb. I saw the house first because of its porch light. It sat at a crossroads between 2 unmarked roads, a 2-story Victorian painted dark green. A vacation rental sign hung crooked on a post by the gravel driveway. I couldn't believe my luck. The old woman who answered the door wore a blue bathrobe and fuzzy slippers. She introduced herself as Mrs. Keene, the property manager. Her white hair stuck out in all directions. "You're in luck," she said. "The current guests canceled last minute. I can rent you a room for the night. Cash only." I handed her $60, and she gave me a brass key attached to a wooden tag marked Room 3. The inside of the house smelled like old carpet and wood polish. A narrow staircase led up to a dark second floor. Mrs. Keene showed me to a room on the ground floor instead. "The upper floor is being renovated," she said. "Your room has its own bathroom. Checkout is at 11 a.m. I live in the cottage out back if you need anything." The room was basic but clean. Twin bed with a blue quilt, small bathroom with a shower, one window looking out at the dark trees. I took a hot shower, set my phone to charge, and collapsed into bed at 10:30 p.m. The footsteps started at midnight. At first I thought I was dreaming. Slow, heavy steps moving across the ceiling directly above my bed. The old floorboards creaked with each step. Back and forth. Back and forth. I lay perfectly still, listening. The steps moved from one end of the room to the other, perfectly steady. I got out of bed and pressed my ear against the wall. The footsteps continued. Whoever was up there wore heavy boots. Each step sent tiny pieces of ceiling dust drifting down. I opened my door and looked into the dark hallway. The staircase leading up was blocked by yellow caution tape and a no-access sign. The steps upstairs got louder. "Hello?" I called out. "Is someone up there?" The footsteps stopped. Complete silence. Then they started again, faster this time, moving straight toward the staircase. I slammed my door shut and locked it. The steps reached the top of the stairs. They started descending, one at a time. My heart pounded so hard I could feel it in my throat. I pressed my back against the far wall. The steps reached the bottom of the stairs. They moved down the hallway toward my door. I could hear the floorboards squeaking just outside. They stopped right in front of my room. 3 loud knocks made me jump. The brass doorknob slowly turned, but the lock held. "Mrs. Keene?" My voice came out as a whisper. "Is that you?" No answer. Another set of knocks, harder this time. The door rattled in its frame. I grabbed my phone, still no signal. The knocking got faster, more aggressive. I could see the door shaking. Then it stopped. The footsteps moved away down the hall, back toward the stairs. I heard them go up to the second floor again. The pacing resumed overhead. I didn't sleep. I sat on the bed with my back against the headboard, watching the door. The footsteps continued all night, sometimes slow, sometimes fast. Twice more they came down to my door and knocked, but never as violently as the first time. When sunlight finally came through the window, I packed my bag and went to find Mrs. Keene. The hallway was empty. The caution tape across the stairs hung undisturbed. I knocked on doors of the other ground floor rooms, no answer. I went outside to the cottage behind the house. No one there either. That's when I noticed something strange about the house. From the outside, it was clearly a single-story building. No second floor at all. Just a roof with a few small vents. I ran back inside and looked up the staircase. The steps went up about 15 feet and ended at a solid wall. No door, no hallway, nothing. My hands shook as I searched the house. All the ground floor rooms were empty. No sign of Mrs. Keene or any other guests. In the kitchen, I found a stack of local newspapers. The most recent was from 1987. I left the key on the front desk and got out of there. I practically ran to the nearest town 5 miles away. When I told the local diner owner about the house at the crossroads, his face went pale. "That place burned down in '87, he said. "Terrible tragedy. The owner, Margaret Keene, died in the fire. They never rebuilt it." I convinced him to drive me back there. We found the crossroads easily enough. But where I'd spent the night, there was nothing but an empty lot full of weeds. A single wooden post still stood by the road, rotted and gray with age. A vacation rental sign hung from it, swaying gently in the wind. That was 3 months ago. I got the job in Chicago and tried to forget about what happened. But last week, I received something in the mail. No return address. Inside the envelope was a brass key attached to a wooden tag marked Room 3. Every night since then, I've been waking up at midnight to the sound of footsteps overhead. I live in a first-floor apartment. The footsteps are getting closer to the stairs. Part 2. I didn't tell anyone about the key at first. Who would believe me? I threw it in the trash the same day it arrived. The next morning, I found it on my kitchen counter. The footsteps got worse each night. They started at midnight exactly and continued until sunrise. I couldn't sleep. I tried earplugs, white noise machines, sleeping pills. Nothing helped. The sound came through everything. After a week, dark circles formed under my eyes. My hands shook constantly. At work, I couldn't focus. I drank 8 cups of coffee a day just to stay awake. I hired a contractor to check the roof and ceiling. He found nothing unusual. No loose boards, no hidden spaces. Just solid construction with no room for anyone to walk. "Building's only got the 1 floor, buddy," he said. "No way anybody's up there." I started recording the sounds on my phone. The recordings picked up nothing but static. I bought an expensive microphone and tried again. Same result. Last night, things changed. The footsteps came as usual at midnight. But this time they moved differently. Instead of pacing back and forth, they walked in a perfect circle above my bed. Round and round, getting faster and faster. I lay there counting the steps. After exactly 100 rotations, they stopped. Complete silence for exactly 1 minute. Then 3 loud knocks directly overhead. I looked up. A dark stain was spreading across the ceiling, dripping down the walls. It smelled like smoke and something else, something burning. The room got cold enough to see my breath. The brass key sat on my nightstand, though I'd thrown it away again that morning. A piece of paper was folded underneath it. The paper looked old, yellowed and brittle. I unfolded it carefully. It was a newspaper clipping from 1987. The headline read, "Local woman dies in house fire." Below was a photo of Mrs. Keene standing in front of the house where I'd stayed. The article mentioned she was found in room 3, apparently trapped there when the second floor collapsed. The second floor that wasn't supposed to exist. I packed a bag and drove to a hotel. I couldn't stay in that apartment another night. But as I write this from my hotel room, I can hear it. Footsteps on the floor above. They're coming down the hall now. Someone's knocking at my door. Part 3. The hotel didn't help. Neither did staying with friends, sleeping in my car, or even flying to visit my parents in Florida. The footsteps followed me everywhere. After a month of running, I decided to face it. I went back to Pennsylvania, back to that empty lot at the crossroads. I brought the key with me. The lot looked different at night. The weeds moved without wind. The old signpost cast a shadow that stretched too far in the moonlight. I stood in the center of where the house had been and held up the key. "What do you want?" I shouted. "Why are you following me?" The footsteps started behind me. I turned around. Mrs. Keene stood there in her blue bathrobe, but something was wrong. Her skin was black and cracked like burned paper. Smoke rose from her hair. "You took my room," she said. Her voice sounded like crackling flames. "I didn't know," I said. "I'm sorry." She held out her hand. The flesh was charred to the bone. The key. I gave it to her. She clutched it to her chest and smiled. Her teeth were ash gray. "Room 3 is mine," she said. "It's always been mine. Every guest who stays there belongs to me." She grabbed my arm. Her touch burned like fire. I tried to pull away but couldn't move. "The house is gone," I said. "It burned down." She laughed. The sound was like wood splitting in flames. "The house is never gone. It's waiting. Always waiting at the crossroads. And now you'll wait with me." She started dragging me backward. Where the empty lot had been, I saw the house. It looked solid and real, the porch light burning yellow in the darkness. The front door stood open. I fought harder, but her grip was too strong. My clothes started to smoke where she touched me. A car horn blared. Headlights swept across us. Mrs. Keene vanished like smoke in wind. The house disappeared. A pickup truck had turned onto the road. The driver stopped and got out. An old man in a flannel shirt. "You okay, son?" he asked. "Saw you standing out here talking to yourself." I looked down at my arm. A perfect handprint was burned into my skin. That was 2 days ago. The footsteps have stopped. The burn is healing. I thought it was over. But this morning, I checked my mail. There was a letter, no return address. Inside was a brass key attached to a wooden tag. This one is marked Room 4. I can hear footsteps overhead. They're coming down the stairs. The banging started on my first night in Unit 2B. 3 sharp knocks against the wall. Then silence. I checked the time. 3:17 a.m. I thought it would be a one-time thing. I was wrong. I moved into the Madison building in early October. The place had that new construction smell. Fresh paint and clean carpet. Half the units were still empty. The rental agent, Lisa, made a big deal about the soundproof walls when she showed me around. "You'll never hear your neighbors," she said. "Perfect for a writer who needs quiet." That first week, everything seemed normal. I set up my home office, got into a routine. Wake up at 7, write until noon. Lunch, more writing, dinner, sleep. The perfect setup for finishing my novel. The deadline was getting close. Then the noises started getting worse. Not just knocks anymore. Heavy footsteps pacing back and forth. Furniture scraping across the floor. A man's voice, too muffled to make out words. Always between 2 and 4 a.m. After the third night, I left a note on the door of 2A. Could you please keep the noise down at night? The walls are thinner than advertised. Thanks, Jack from 2B. The note was still there the next morning, untouched. I knocked on the door. No answer. I tried again that evening. Nothing. I called Lisa. Who lives in 2A? They're making a lot of noise at night. 2A? That unit isn't rented yet, she said. No one lives there. That's impossible. I hear someone in there every night. I handle all the leases personally, Mr. Walker. 2A is empty. Maybe you're hearing noises from above or below. No, it's definitely coming through the shared wall. Look, can you check? She sighed. I'll come by tomorrow morning. That night, the noises were worse. The pacing started at 2:45 a.m. Back and forth, then a crash, like something heavy falling. A man's voice shouted something. I pressed my ear against the wall but couldn't make out the words. I banged on the wall. Hey, keep it down! The pacing stopped. Then 3 sharp knocks, right where my head was pressed against the wall. I jumped back. Lisa arrived at 9 a.m. the next morning. She used her master key to open 2A. The apartment was completely empty. No furniture, no marks on the carpet, no signs anyone had ever been there. See? She gestured at the empty space. No one lives here. I walked through every room. The layout mirrored my apartment. Living room, kitchen, 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, everything pristine. I put my hand on the shared wall between units. The wall felt cold. Could someone have broken in? Maybe squatters? Lisa shook her head. Impossible. We have security cameras in all hallways and entrances. No one has entered this unit since construction finished. The locks haven't been tampered with. Then how do you explain the noises? Old buildings settle, pipes knock. Maybe you're just not used to apartment living. This is a new building, and I know what I hear. She gave me a look I didn't like. The kind of look you give someone who's not quite rational. I'll have maintenance check the walls and pipes. Will that help? I nodded, but I knew it wouldn't matter. That night, I set up my phone to record audio. The pacing started at 3:08 a.m. I hit record. The footsteps were clear. Heel to toe, crossing the room and back. Then the voice started. A man, speaking in what sounded like whispers. I played the recording back in the morning. Nothing but static. I tried again the next night with better equipment. A professional-grade audio recorder with a sensitive mic. Same result. The noises were clear in person but didn't show up on the recording. I started keeping a detailed log. Night 7, pacing from 2:50, 3:30 a.m. Voice whispering for 10 minutes. 3 knocks at 3:45. Night 8, crash at 2:15 a.m. Pacing until 4. Voice shouting briefly at 3:20. Night 9, just pacing, 3:04 a.m. Night 10, pacing and voice. New sound like scratching on the wall. The scratching was new. It started low near the floor, then moved up the wall. Long, slow scrapes, like fingernails on drywall. I stopped sleeping more than a few hours a night. Dark circles formed under my eyes. My writing suffered. I missed my deadline. I started researching the building's history. The Madison was built on an empty lot. Before that, it was a parking lot for 30 years. Nothing suspicious. No deaths during construction, no accidents. Nothing to explain what I was hearing. I talked to other residents. The woman across the hall in 2C never heard anything. The couple in 2D said the building was the quietest they'd ever lived in. I started to wonder if I was losing my mind. Then I met Sarah from 3B, directly above me. She looked as tired as I felt. "Do you ever hear strange noises?" I asked. "Like someone pacing?" Her eyes widened. "You hear it too?" In the middle of the night? Yes? And a man's voice? She nodded quickly. And scratching sounds. I thought I was going crazy. I complained to management, but they said the unit below me was empty. That's what they told me about 2A. Have you ever recorded the sounds? I tried. Nothing shows up. Just static. We compared notes. She heard the same patterns I did. Always between 2 and 4 a.m. Always pacing, voice, scratching. Both our apartments shared a wall with the empty units. Have you seen inside 3A? I asked. No, it's always locked. We need to look inside, I have an idea. I bought an endoscopic camera, the kind with a flexible tube you can feed through small spaces. That night, Sarah came to my apartment. We waited until after midnight, then I slid the camera under the door of 2A. The apartment was still empty on the camera's small screen. No furniture, no squatters, nothing. At 2:30 a.m. the pacing started. We could both hear it clearly. On the camera, the empty apartment remained still. No one walking, no movement at all. The scratching started at 2:45. Sarah grabbed my arm. Look! On the camera screen, long marks were appearing on the wall. Gouges in the drywall carving themselves from bottom to top. But nothing was there making them. The screen went black. When I pulled the camera back, the tube was crushed flat. Sarah left quickly after that. I don't blame her. She moved out the next week. I should have left too. But I needed answers. I installed more cameras, motion sensors, an infrared detector. Everything showed the same thing. An empty apartment with invisible forces leaving very visible damage. I took photos of the scratches on the wall and showed them to Lisa. She called maintenance. They patched and painted the wall. The next night, new scratches appeared. The noises got worse. The pacing became running. The voice grew louder, though still unclear. The scratching turned to pounding. I stopped going to my bedroom, started sleeping on the couch, away from the shared wall. But the sounds followed. New scratches appeared on the living room wall. One night I heard something new, crying, not loud but clear, a man sobbing on the other side of the wall. I pressed my hand against the wall. Hello? Can you hear me? The crying stopped. Then a whisper right next to my hand. Help me. I jerked back. The voice was clearer than ever before. Desperate. Afraid. How can I help? I asked. No response. Just more crying, fainter now. I didn't sleep at all that night. Or the next. I started seeing things. Shadows moving in my peripheral vision. Shapes in mirrors. Dark figures that vanished when I turned around. The lack of sleep affected my work. My agent dropped me. I missed paying rent. Lisa sent warning notices. I tried everything to block the sounds. Earplugs. White noise machines. Sound dampening panels. Nothing worked. The noises came through everything. Then one night, something changed. The pacing stopped mid-step. The scratching ceased. Complete silence. I pressed my ear against the wall, listening. 3 sharp knocks, right next to my head. Then the wall cracked. A thin line appeared, running from floor to ceiling. As I watched, it widened. Cold air seeped through. The crack spread, branching like lightning. I backed away. Plaster crumbled. The crack kept growing. A hand reached through. Gray, skeletal, fingers grasping at air. I ran, out of the apartment, down the stairs, into the street. I never went back. Left everything behind. Clothes, furniture, laptop, all my work. I couldn't risk going back for any of it. Lisa called a few days later. Your apartment is trashed, she said. The wall between units is destroyed. You'll have to pay for repairs. I hung up, blocked her number, blocked my agent, my publisher, everyone associated with that place. I'm in a small town now, different state, living in a house, not an apartment, no shared walls. But sometimes late at night I hear 3 sharp knocks, and I wonder about the empty apartment next door, the one that was never rented, the one where something impossible lived. I wonder who else is hearing those sounds now. Who else is pressing their ear against that wall, listening to the pacing, the voice, the scratching. I wonder what would have happened if I'd stayed, if I'd let that hand pull me through the crack. Some walls are better left solid. Some neighbors are better left unmet. But in my dreams I still hear the whisper, "Help me." And I wake up wondering if I should have tried harder to understand what was on the other side of that wall. What needed help so desperately? What's still there, pacing back and forth, waiting for someone to answer its knocks? I shouldn't have looked back at him through the bus window. That's what started it all. Just a quick glance as the bus pulled away. If I hadn't turned my head, maybe he wouldn't have followed me home. Maybe I'd still be sleeping through the night instead of jumping at every sound. It was Tuesday, October 15th, a normal workday. I left the office at 5:30 p.m., same as always. The sun was already setting behind the buildings downtown. The air felt cold against my face as I walked to my usual bus stop on 7th Street. 3 other people waited at the stop. An elderly woman with shopping bags, a teenager with headphones, and a businessman checking his phone. I stood near the signpost and checked the arrival time on my phone. 7 minutes until the 43 bus. That's when I heard footsteps behind me. Slow, deliberate steps on the concrete. I didn't turn around at first. In a city, you get used to people walking near you. But these footsteps stopped right next to me. Too close. Close enough that I could feel the presence of someone just inches from my right shoulder. I shifted my weight to the left, trying to put some space between us without making it obvious. The footsteps didn't follow. I glanced to my right. A man stood there, about 6 feet tall, black coat, dark jeans, brown shoes. His face was normal. That's what made it worse later. No scars, no strange features. Just a completely average-looking white man in his 40s. Short brown hair, clean-shaven, the kind of face you'd forget immediately, except he was staring straight ahead, not moving, not checking his phone, not shifting his weight, just standing perfectly still like a statue. His arms hung at his sides. His breathing was so shallow I couldn't even see his chest move. The elderly woman left first when the 39 bus came. Then the teenager got on the 51. The businessman walked away after checking his watch, probably giving up on his bus. That left just me and the statue man. My bus finally turned the corner. The brakes squealed as it stopped in front of us. I got on first, swiped my card, and walked to a seat in the middle. The man didn't get on. I looked out the window as we pulled away. He turned his head. Just his head, not his body. Turned it slowly until he was looking directly at me through the glass. His eyes locked onto mine. His face hadn't changed at all. Still that blank expression. But now it was aimed at me like a gun. The bus turned the corner. I lost sight of him. My hands were shaking as I pulled out my phone. I tried to distract myself with emails, but I kept seeing his face in my mind. Those empty eyes. 20 minutes later, I pulled the cord for my stop. The bus slowed on Cedar Street, 3 blocks from my house. I stood up, thanked the driver, and stepped down onto the sidewalk. The street was quiet. Most of my neighbors were probably inside eating dinner. The streetlights had just turned on. Long shadows stretched across lawns and driveways. I started walking home. The sound of the bus pulling away faded behind me. Then I heard it. Footsteps on the sidewalk. Coming from ahead of me this time. He stood under the streetlight at the corner. Same black coat. Same stance. Same blank face. Staring straight at me. My legs froze. My throat closed up. This was impossible. He'd been at the bus stop downtown. He couldn't be here. I hadn't seen him on the bus. There was no way he could have beaten me to my neighborhood. But there he was. I turned and ran. My dress shoes slapped against the concrete. My breath came in sharp bursts. I didn't look back. I cut through the Andersons' yard, jumped their fence, and ran through 3 more backyards before emerging onto Oak Street. My house was just ahead. I sprinted up the driveway, fumbled with my keys, and got inside. I slammed the door, locked it, and leaned against it. My heart pounded in my chest, Sweat ran down my face. Through the small window next to the door, I saw movement. He walked past my house, slow, measured steps. He didn't look toward the house, didn't try the door, just walked by like he was taking an evening stroll. I ran to each door and window, checked every lock twice, called the police. They took my report but said they couldn't do much since he hadn't actually done anything threatening. Just standing near someone and walking down a public street isn't a crime. I didn't sleep that night. Every car that drove past made me jump. Every creak of the house settling sounded like footsteps. Morning came. I called in sick to work. Spent the day inside, watching through the windows. No sign of him. By evening, I'd almost convinced myself I'd imagined it all. Stress and an overactive imagination. Then my doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole. Empty porch. No one there. The doorbell rang again. I checked the peephole again. Still empty. A third ring. I grabbed my phone, ready to call 911. Looked through the peephole one more time. His eye was pressed against the other side of the peephole, staring directly at me. I stumbled backward, fell onto the floor, scrambled away from the door. The doorbell rang a fourth time. I ran upstairs to my bedroom, locked the door, called 911, told them someone was trying to break in. The police came, found nothing. No signs of tampering with the doors or windows. No footprints on the porch. They took another report, suggested I install security cameras. I bought cameras the next day, had them installed all around the house. Bought new locks, better window latches, motion sensor lights. For 3 days, nothing happened. The cameras showed only cats and raccoons at night. No strange men in black coats. On Saturday, I finally left the house. Had to get groceries. Couldn't live on delivery forever. The store was only a 5-minute drive. I parked close to the entrance, hurried inside, grabbed what I needed quickly. In the checkout line, I saw him. 2 lanes over, just standing there, not buying anything, staring straight ahead. I left my cart and ran, got in my car, broke the speed limit getting home. He was standing in my driveway. I drove past my house, went to a hotel, checked in under a false name, took a room on the 4th floor. At 3 a.m., I woke up to knocking, looked through the peephole, empty hallway, more knocking, still empty. The knocking moved to the window. I was on the 4th floor, opened the curtains. He stood on the ledge outside my window. Same blank expression, same black coat flowing in the wind. I checked out immediately, drove to my sister's house 2 states away. She let me stay in her guest room. I told her everything. She believed me, said I could stay as long as I needed. That was 2 weeks ago. Last night, her daughter said a strange man was standing in the backyard, just standing there, staring at the house. My sister looked, saw nothing, but I knew. I packed my bags again, left a note thanking her, started driving. I've been on the road for 18 hours now. Stopped at this diner to write everything down. Maybe someone will read this and understand. The waitress just asked if I want more coffee, but it wasn't the waitress. It was him, in a waitress uniform. Same face, same blank expression. I'm running to my car now. Don't know where I'll go, but it doesn't matter. He'll be there when I arrive. He's always there. I shouldn't have looked back through that bus window. I should have kept my eyes forward. Should have. Wait. Someone just sat down in the booth across from me. I don't want to look up, but I can see the black coat in my peripheral vision. I can feel those eyes on me. The laptop screen reflects his face. He's smiling now. For the first time, he's smiling. I have to G. The mud trapped my wheels at 6:47 p.m. I remember checking my watch right then because I knew darkness was coming. I'd taken the shortcut through the backwoods to avoid rush hour traffic, thinking I'd get home early. Instead, I got stuck on an unnamed dirt road with no cell service 10 miles from the nearest house. The engine died at 8:12 p.m. That's when the noises started. I work in sales at a paper company in Springfield. Nothing exciting, just routine client meetings and spreadsheets. That Wednesday in October started normal. I finished my last meeting at 5:30 p.m., packed up my laptop and headed to my car, a 2019 Honda Civic that I kept clean and serviced regularly. Traffic on I-95 looked awful on Google Maps. A solid red line stretched for miles. I remembered an old dirt road that cut through the woods. My buddy Steve mentioned it once. "Saves 30 minutes," he'd said. "Just don't take it when it's wet." It hadn't rained in days. The afternoon sun still lit up the sky. I turned off the highway onto County Road 23, then onto a narrower paved road, then finally onto the dirt path. Trees crowded both sides. Their branches reached over the road, creating a tunnel of brown and orange leaves. My tires crunched over rocks and sticks. The first 10 minutes went fine. The road curved but stayed solid. I checked my GPS, but the signal kept cutting out. No problem, I thought. Just keep heading east. The trees would end eventually. Then the road dipped down into a valley. The ground looked darker here, wetter. I should have stopped. Should have backed up right then. But I kept going, thinking the soil would stay firm enough. It didn't. My front wheels hit a patch of mud and sank. I pressed the gas. The engine revved. The wheels spun. Mud sprayed everywhere, but the car didn't move. I got out to check the damage. My shoes sank an inch into the muck. The front tires had dug themselves into deep ruts. I grabbed branches and shoved them under the wheels for traction. Nothing worked. The car just dug itself deeper. No cell service, no GPS. The sun was setting fast now, painting the sky purple through the trees. I had a flashlight in the glove box, half a bottle of water, and some old granola bars. My gas tank showed quarter full. The temperature dropped as darkness fell. I put on my suit jacket, but it didn't help much. The car's heater worked, but I couldn't run it all night. I needed to conserve gas. At 8:12 p.m., I turned the key to start the engine again. Nothing happened. Not even a click. The battery was dead. The first sound came from behind the car. A crack, like a thick branch breaking. I twisted around in my seat but saw only blackness through the rear window. The sound came again, closer this time. Another crack, followed by something that sounded like footsteps in the mud. I locked all the doors. The windows were already up. I grabbed my flashlight and pointed it out the back window. The beam cut through the darkness but showed only trees and shadows. The footsteps circled to the passenger side. Slow, deliberate. Each step made a wet sucking sound in the mud. I swung the flashlight that way. Nothing moved in the beam. Something knocked on the passenger window. 3 sharp raps. My heart jumped into my throat. I jerked the flashlight toward the sound. Empty space greeted me. Just the dark glass reflecting my own pale face. "Hello?" I called out. My voice sounded thin and shaky. "Is someone there? I'm stuck. I need help." No answer, just more footsteps, moving to the front of the car now. The beam of my flashlight followed the sound but caught nothing. Another knock, this time on the hood. Metal rang under the impact. Then another hit, harder. The whole car shook. I gripped the flashlight tighter. My hands were sweating. "Who's there?" I shouted. "This isn't funny." The response came as a series of heavy blows on the roof. Boom, 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 like someone pounding with their fist, or something heavier than a fist. I ducked down in my seat, heart pounding. The attacks continued, moving across the roof from front to back. Each impact made the metal creak and flex. Then silence. Complete silence. Even the normal forest sounds, insects, wind in the trees, had stopped. I stayed low, straining to hear anything. A scratch. Light at first, then deeper. The sound of something sharp dragging across metal. It started at the trunk and moved slowly up the driver's side. I pressed myself against the passenger seat, as far from that sound as possible. The scratching reached my window. Stopped. I held my breath. A shadow blocked the dim starlight filtering through the trees. Something large stood right outside my window. I could feel its presence, sense its weight shifting in the mud. The flashlight beam shook as I raised it. Before I could aim it at the window, a low growl froze me in place. Not like any animal I knew. Too deep, too wrong. I stayed absolutely still. Sweat ran down my back. The thing outside sniffed the window, making wet, snuffling sounds. Its breath fogged the glass. The window started to crack, just a small line at first, spreading from the top corner. Then another crack formed. And another. The safety glass splintered but held together. I fumbled with the flashlight, finally managing to point it at the window. In the split second before it clicked on, I wasn't sure I wanted to see what was out there. The beam hit empty air. The presence was gone. The cracking stopped. But the night was far from over. For hours, it circled the car, sometimes scratching, sometimes pounding, sometimes just standing quietly, letting me know it was still there. I tried counting seconds to track time, but lost count somewhere after midnight. The flashlight battery started to dim around 2 a.m. I clicked it off to save power, using it only when the sounds got too close. At one point, something scraped across the roof. Not the sharp scratching from before, but a softer sound, like fabric dragging over metal or skin. The sound moved to the front windshield. In the weak moonlight, I saw something dark slide down the glass. It left a wet trail behind it. I clicked on the flashlight. The beam caught a glimpse of pale flesh disappearing over the hood. Just for a moment. Just enough to see that it wasn't shaped quite right. More scratching came from underneath the car now. Sharp claws or nails on the metal undercarriage. The whole car rocked as something pushed up from below. I pulled my feet up onto the seat. The thing under the car scraped back and forth, testing different spots, looking for a way in. The attack on the roof started again, harder this time. The metal dented inward with each hit. The windshield cracked. Small pieces of safety glass rained onto the dashboard. I curled into a ball on the seat, covering my head. The impacts got stronger. The roof groaned. The window cracks spread. Then a new sound cut through the chaos. A rooster crowing, far in the distance. First light must have been approaching. The pounding stopped. The scratching stopped. The presence withdrew. I stayed frozen in place, waiting. Minutes passed. Nothing happened. The sky began to lighten. Gray dawn filtered through the trees. Birds started chirping. I slowly uncurled myself. My muscles screamed in protest. I'd been tensed up for hours. In the growing light, I examined the damage. Deep scratches ran along both sides of the car. The roof was dented in multiple places. The windows were cracked but intact. Dark stains marked the glass where that thing had touched it. My phone suddenly chimed. Signal was back. The screen showed 6:23 a.m. I called DIA with shaking fingers. The operator said a tow truck would come within the hour. I gave them the best directions I could. While I waited, I got out to inspect the car more closely. The mud had dried somewhat overnight. In the hardened earth around the car, I found tracks. Not animal prints, not human footprints either. The marks were long and twisted, like something had dragged itself through the mud. They circled the car completely. Under the rear bumper, deep furrows showed where claws had dug into the metal. The tow truck arrived at 7:15 a.m. The driver was a heavy-set man named Earl. He took one look at the scratches and dents and whistled. "Bears?" he asked, hooking up the chains to pull my car out. I didn't answer. What could I say? The car came free with a sucking sound. The engine started on the first try now. The battery wasn't dead after all. I followed the tow truck back to the main road. At the intersection, Earl gave me directions to the nearest service station. I nodded, but I didn't plan to stop. I drove straight home, watching the sun climb higher in the sky. I called in sick to work. Spent the day sitting in my bright kitchen drinking coffee, waiting for night to come again, wondering if that thing would find me here. I sold the car the next week. Couldn't stand to look at those scratches. Couldn't shake the memory of that presence outside my window. I take the highway now, no matter how bad traffic gets. Sometimes a longer route is safer. Sometimes shortcuts lead places you don't want to go. But on dark nights, When the wind blows just right, I still hear it. That deep, wrong growl. Those heavy footsteps in the mud. That scraping on metal. And I wonder, if the sun had risen just a few minutes later, would anything have been left of me to find? The worst part? That dirt road isn't on any map I've checked. I've driven up and down County Road 23 several times since then looking for the turnoff. It's gone, like it never existed. But the scratches on my old car were real. The dents were real. And sometimes, late at night, I check my windows and doors twice. Because I know what's out there in the dark. I know it remembers me.